Chapter 41. Bradley POV. Man was off to see Izzy. He had still been up in the hotel suite last night when Eddie had strolled out his room, headed for the door to leave the room. It was nearly 2300. Where are you going? Brad asked the man, though by the look on his face, smiling at himself, Bradley was certain that I'm going to sleep in Izzy's bed. He'd comment casually as he'd headed for the door. Eddie, no asterisk, my son is down there. Heard Eddie snort, yes, Bradley. Didn't like the tone. It implied he wasn't going to abide. I mean it, Edward. This hotel is not soundproofed like your room back at the Pack would be. We'll be quiet. He opened the door to leave. Edward. Bradley snapped at him, I bloody mean it. If Piper tells me you did, and she will hear regardless of how quiet you think you are. I will order you to stay in this room for the rest of the trip and then, was silent to make his point for 15 seconds, I will refuse to let Izzy come here at all. That got the man's undivided attention. He was now frowning right at Bradley from that doorway, clearly unhappy with his words. Bradley stared right at him. He did mean it. He would damned well alpha order him if he had to. Is Piper aware and okay with you sleeping in her hotel room? I don't know, but it is Izzy's room too. If she is unhappy about it, you will leave, do you understand me? Yes, Bradley. Eddie nodded, looked very unhappy about it, but acknowledged it. Bradley didn't much like it himself. He couldn't even mind link to Piper to warn her or see if she was okay with it. Couldn't even call her. For that matter, didn't have her private number either. She could well be asleep for all he knew, and know nothing about Eddie going down there to sleep in Izzy's bed. Gave it a full 15 minutes, nil complaint, and the man did not return. Either must be all right with Piper, or she was asleep. He mind-linked to Cooper, who was in the hotel lobby. Pulled him off of guard duty. If Eddie was going to be sleeping in that room, he'd pick up if Piper tried to leave, or if there was any sort of trouble. Eddie would be right there to sort it out or hold down the fort until Bradley could get there himself. Which allowed for the rest of them to get some sleep during the night. Mind-linked to the man, Eddie, if you're sleeping there, expect you to be diligent in your duties as a Gamma, where my mate and son are concerned. Of course, Bradley, came his reply, Piper is currently in the shower, Brandon is sleeping, he was informed and then the link was cut. Bradley sighed and shook his head, he did not need to know she was in the shower, that was just Eddie's way of trying to distract him from being annoyed with him. It was highly likely that Piper had no idea he was even there. This was not going to go down so well. He was going to beat that man if he screwed things up even worse than they already were. But on the other hand, they would all be safe with Eddie in that room, and a part of him was actually glad his man was there. Wondered if he could get Piper to agree to Eddie staying in the room the whole time they were there. That would certainly ease his mind, and he and his men wouldn't have to rotate shifts either. Guess he would have to ask her. His men in Portland had finally been granted bail and been released from police custody. Though his father had not been able to get the moving van due to the fact that it did actually have some of Piper's belongings inside it. So it had been impounded and it was not going back to them until Piper cleared all this up with the police herself. Something else he was going to have to talk to her about. He had been going to do it today, but had gotten very waylaid, with just trying to get her to talk to him. And that was more important to him than a van. Worst comes to worst, he cut his losses and purchased a new one. His father had also relieved his brother Hendrix from his alpha position within the Pack. Stepping back into the position himself, which had not gone down so well. And Bradley had taken that irate phone call just a few hours ago. Had to explain to his brother why his father was taking over once more, about that contract and the actual implications and full seriousness of it. That, seeing as their father had made the contract, it should be he who is fully responsible to it. Hendrix had been quiet for a long time, as he absorbed the fact that at any given moment another alpha could come strolling in and demand an alpha duel to the death. Then he had stated, somewhat annoyed, fine, and had just hung up. Likely he was more than unhappy about this authority being removed. He was alpha-blooded and would likely have enjoyed being in charge, wouldn't have liked being removed by his father coming out of retirement after 11 years to do it either. Wouldn't have seen a need for it at all. He was well trained and though not in line for the Pack himself, especially with Brad actually having a mate and an heir now. spend most of the evening after dinner with Piper attending to emails and the running of his companies from abroad. He was too restless to sleep. Didn't actually see sleep coming for quite a while if he got any at all. Too much in his mind, but he was currently distracting himself from Piper with work. Or she was going to find him at her door trying to get her to give him a chance, and he knew she needed time to absorb and come to terms with everything that was going on. He had explained a lot to her about Whitlocks and that none of them had sense, but that there was a way for him to send her with her family's help. Then finding out she was his actual mate still. Having Eddie actually touch her, something that was very clear she did not want any wolf touching her. That made him more than a little sad. Slept barely 4 hours and was up before dawn, was restless and needed to get it out of his system. Had already woken both Cooper and Harry for morning training down in the hotel gym, and they were getting ready to leave when Eddie mind-linked him that Piper and Brandon were going to go for a run, that he'd invited himself along. Suggest to him it might be a good bonding experience for him, Piper and Brandon. Bradley agreed with him on that one. Even managed to arrive ahead of them. They'd taken the stairs, and it had been quicker. Was mind-linked again by a fully amused comment that Brandon reckoned he could outrun Eddie, that Eddie had accepted the challenge. Watching Piper walk into the hotel gym shocked him completely. He'd never seen her in anything but smart casual dress, and she was just wearing gym wear. Had her hair pulled up in a ponytail, and was wearing a light green crop top that showed him just how ample her breasts actually were, and a pair of matching light green 3/4 tights that sat low across her hips. Showed off her very well-defined abdomen. She was sporting a nice V-line herself. It was very obvious that she worked out. You just couldn't tell from her usual attire, and likely all the time. Or at least she ran often. Couldn't stop his eyes from sliding over her. He'd already had thoughts about putting his hands on her most of the night. Now how was he not supposed to think about it? He was a little unhappy that she was showing so much skin around his unit, but did know she was dressed appropriately. Actually, he'd seen she-wolves in his pack wear a lot less for training. She did not appear all that happy to see him, and neither did Brandon, for that matter. The boy actually huffed in annoyance at seeing him here in the gym waiting on them. Likely this was something she and Brandon did together, a mother and son thing. The boy obviously thought he was intruding on their time. Watched as Izzy walked away and took a seat against the wall, made herself comfortable. Izzy doesn't want to run. Eddie mind-linked him, seemed a bit disappointed by it. Not everyone likes running, Eddie, human remember. Heard the man huff down the mind link and stood and watched as Harry tried to interact with Brandon, even calling Eddie real slow. Which was not true at all. The man was trying to get Brandon to see them in a different light. He already had pups himself and was a good dad. Both Cooper and Harry had been informed of what had happened during his dinner with Piper. That Piper had openly admitted to rejecting him back then. That their mate bond was in fact intact. They were all now trying to play nice, gain not just Piper's trust, but Brandon's too. He'd never had a good interaction with his own kind. They were working on that now. Cooper thought working on the boy, getting him to like them, might be the easier option. He didn't know anything of his own kind, or very little, and so if they could show Brandon that not all wolves were mean and aggressive, the boy's natural curiosity about his own kind might shine through quicker and draw him to Bradley. It wasn't a bad idea at all, though Bradley still didn't like the idea of using the boy as leverage. Was told it's not leverage, it would be just the two of them bonding, and if Brandon chose on his own to talk happily or excitedly about Brad, that was his choice. They weren't going to be asking him to do that. But what Brandon did on his own was up to the boy himself. He was listening to the conversation Piper was having with Brandon about why they were all stretching. He did note she did not, and neither did his son. A part of him, his alpha part, wanted to tell them to stretch, so their muscles wouldn't hurt afterwards. Piper didn't seem to care, told Brandon she was a natural-born runner, and so was he. That gained his attention. He only ran actively once a week, when he was training others, the juniors usually. His training with his alpha unit was all targeted at strength, fighting, and agility. He could run. All wolves could. Most actually enjoyed running, though in wolf form, not human. Sounded as though Piper ran for enjoyment, and so did Brandon. His eyes slid over her body as she stepped up onto the treadmill, and he wondered just how often she ran and for how long. Looking at her, it was likely that she ran daily. He wondered if he'd be able to get the boy to come and do some sparring with him after this run. He really did love hearing Brandon so excited about this challenge and seeing him actively engaged. Although the boy had not spoken to any of them willingly, he wanted to challenge all of them, it seemed. The alpha blood in him made Bradley smile. Benson was also excited to see what his own boy could do. They had not missed her asking if Aspen was awake. Piqued both their interests. Perhaps his wolf was not actually fully realized, slept a lot still being so young. And that's why they'd not sensed him back in Portland, could have been dormant that day they'd been trying to feel for his wolf. Nearly laughed when he heard Izzy call out her money was on Piper. And Brandon call her a traitor. Looked right at her as she looked at all of them, a piece of cake. He'd heard Cooper state via the mind link and smirked himself. No one in his pack could outrun he or his unit. Watched her roll her eyes right at all of them, and only then actually really wondered if this was going to be more of a challenge than any of them thought it would be. What was her game plan here in this room? They actually didn't know anything about her, not her strength or stamina, nothing at all about Harper herself. There was nothing in the pack's database about her wolf, on training or strength. Realized he didn't even know how big Harper was in wolf form, just had that handwritten statement, a very brief description, and nothing at all on Harper's personality. Hell, he did not even know anything about Piper's personality for that matter. So far, all he had seen was aggression and anger, and that she was cold and dismissive. He knew they had to be strong in mind to survive all they had inside his pack, survive all she had gone through, sheer determination and will to survive it all. Had left and flourished even. A strong woman, in not just mind, but body as well, he could now see. Put Eddie right next to Brandon, seeing as there was an active challenge going on between them, though Eddie's constant banter at Brandon didn't go down so well, and he heard Brandon snarl at his gamma to shut it, nearly laughed himself. It was very annoying. Eddie had been actively annoying the boy, saw Piper snort, and nearly laugh herself. It was good to see. She did seem to be able to be happy around Brandon, could always smile at the boy, regardless of how annoyed she was with Bradley. She didn't seem to let that seep through to her bond with the boy. He enjoyed watching them, liked it when she smiled too. It would be nice if she could smile at him, even just once. But he'd gotten nothing from her but frowns or impassiveness or aggression. Brandon was so excited to yell out, "You loose, Eddie," that Bradley couldn't help but smile at his son. Piper did actually chuckle this time, a soft half-giggle, and not only did his heart rate quicken, he felt Benson really look at her. He too, it seemed, liked hearing her laugh. At least they knew she could be happy. Wasn't all anger and aggression all the time. Could hear clear amusement in her voice when she stated she hadn't done anything, but Bradley was pretty certain Piper had known what she was doing, likely also knew that Izzy would actively play along with her, smiled to himself. As he realized that Piper was actively tormenting his alpha unit, actively interacting with them all, it may only be in a small way. But she was actively engaging with other wolves. It was a good start. Any kind of bond between them at all was a welcome sight for him at the moment, considering she'd threatened just yesterday to rip their hands off. Harry called it quits 1 hour in. The damned woman and his son, it seemed, were natural runners after all, and this was all about running. There would be no sparing afterwards. Your mate is crazy fit. He heard Harry mutter down the mind link. Again, he smiled to himself, shot right back, so is my son. Only 7 and beat you. He was very proud of his boy. He really was having a good time. Eddie's suggestion was a good one. Bradley could see Brandon was going to be one strong alpha, just what the future of the pack needed. Heard Brandon all excitedly yelling about winning again, looked right at his boy and actually felt pride roll right off Benson as well. The boy was grinning, and they both noted that Aspen was right there on the surface. Thankfully, they were the only ones in the gym to see it. Heard Eddie rib his bother about losing to a kid, only to have Harry give it right back. Eddie stated he cheated out of his challenge and next time wouldn't be tricked into getting off the treadmill. Even heard Izzy snicker in amusement. They were all getting along, it seemed. Loved it. Loved hearing Brandon's wolf snarl, all angry and annoyed as he got off the treadmill. The alpha in him did not like to lose. No alpha did that, he knew for sure. Piper chuckled at him, didn't seem offended at all. This was likely their normal, he realized. Cooper had told him the boy's wolf had lost her on their morning run in the woods back in Portland and had reacted just like now. Heard his young gravelly voice for the first time, only a matter of time, and both he and Benson knew without a doubt that it was Aspen who was annoyed. They'd not actually heard him speak before. Growl and snarl, yes, but actively push forward and talk. So very young. So very powerful already. A bit of a sore loser. Brad commented, even though he was happy to see and hear his boy like that. He was going to have to learn to keep that temper in check. Even at just 7, he'd seen just how much aggression was in the boy's wolf, likely to do with needing to protect his tiny pack. Running was probably a good outlet, though as he got older it wasn't going to be enough. Piper's honey brown eyes turned right on him and raised an eyebrow right at him, then took a full shot at him. Probably takes after you. In that department. Damned near missed a step at her comment. She was pretty much accusing him of being a sore loser himself. To his disbelief, he heard his whole unit snort in full amusement. Bradley did not consider himself a sore loser, though he could at times be frustrated by not being the best at things, but that was just because he was the alpha, the pack's leader, and needed to be the fastest, the strongest, and the most feared and ferocious to protect his pack. Did they all think he was a sore loser too? Brad, it was Cooper down the mine link. She's killing me, man. Look at her. A bloody machine, still so comfortable. Bradley smiled, then let her win. Coop, I'm still up for the challenge. You're on your own then. He heard his beta mutter, then called it quits out loud and got off his treadmill. Sustained running in human form was not something they were trained in. His own body was aching, but he had Benson pushing him along. His wolf was not ready to give up yet. Though when Bradley looked at her, Cooper was right. Though she had a full sheen of sweat covering her entire body, she looked very comfortable, didn't even see Harper on the surface. If this was just all Piper and Harper had yet to join in this challenge, he could well be in trouble. Benson had been assisting him for the past 40 minutes now. Natural-born runner popped right into his mind, and he heard Benson huff. He just seemed concerned that they might not actually win this challenge against her. Though a part of him was actually really loving every second of this alpha on Luna showdown. She might not even be anywhere close to being his actual Luna, but he was going to hunt, annoy and cajole her until he won that game. She was his mate, and he wanted her, would find a way to scent her and attain her for himself. Benson felt a change in her, and looked over at her. Knew Harper had finally joined in the challenge. His muscles were screaming at him to stop. He drank down more water and Benson pushed more stamina at him. Neither of them wanted to lose this battle against them. It was 2 hours and 40 minutes in, and the woman and her wolf looked right at them. He knew they were assessing the situation. He was going to lose. They still looked so very comfortable. Harper only came on board when it was needed, saved all her wolf strength and stamina till it was actually needed it. It was very clear to him that Piper alone ran a lot, likely every day. Hearing her issue a new challenge made Benson growl inside his mind. They were already just about at their human limit. They had never run this long in human form in all their lives. But it was obvious she did it all the time and was used to it. No one was catching her if she actively ran away from them. Edward, I'd like a real challenge, she stated calmly, as though this was nothing to her. Come and crank your boss's treadmill all the way up. Bradley sighed internally at his new challenge. Her assessment of him and his status was not wrong. She was going to push him as hard as she could, as quickly as she could. She knew she wasn't even close to being done. It also angered him that she hadn't used his name yet again. Eddie was only too happy to help her, appeared to be fully amused. Brad looked right at her. She paid him no attention whatsoever. She was a ball of determination. She was going to win and put him in his place, wanted to show him up. I'm stronger than you, is what she was trying to state, likely also trying to let him know he wasn't going to be able to push her around. On 5, he heard Eddie state, saw the man look right at her and laugh. Damned woman was playing with him, and not in a way he appreciated at all. was going to have him lose right in front of his entire unit. Eddie seemed to know it, thought it was funny as fuck. Heard his own son yell out, "Kick his ass, Mum." No one, it seemed, was on his side at all, and that was more than annoying to him and his wolf. They were the alpha here. Where was the bloody respect? Oh, I intend to. It was all Harper. There was no Piper in that statement at all. Her wolf looked very comfortable. This was their first real interaction with Harper. That was not pure aggression, and she was outright challenging him and Benson, and very smugly so at that. Running at 20 km an hour, even with Benson giving him all he had, his human body couldn't take it. It was screaming in agony at him, and not just his lungs, but all his muscles. Banged his hand down on the stop button and snapped a foot to either side of the treadmill and dragged in a few desperately needed breaths as he glared right at her wolf, his own mate who was still running. Benson snarled all his annoyance at his own mate for showing him up, and then they stalked away from he. Heard Piper snort, a bit of a sore loser. She and Harper sounded amused to his ear. His entire unit were smiling at him. Brandon was grinning, poked his tongue right out at him, and then got up and ran right over to his mother, who had not gotten off her treadmill even after she won, had eased it down a bit by bit over the next 5 minutes and showed him up just that little bit more, by letting him know she could still go on running if she wanted to. "You're amazing." Brandon was beaming right up at her. You beat them all. He was so very proud of his mother, didn't even care anymore that he also had lost to her, likely realized he was not going to win against her. Not in a long time. Breakfast, he practically ordered all of them. He needed food and his body was killing him. He and Benson had overdone it trying to show her how strong they were, also trying to show her up, and now they were feeling it. They needed food and electrolytes to help his body recover, which meant that so did all of them, especially Piper. She was only half his size and would have expanded all her energy as well. Eddie was still over by the treadmill, happy it seemed, really happy watching her and Brandon. Obviously, her mood was good, and that made his gamma happy. "Your boss is a sore loser, I see," her tone, still so fully amused about his annoyance at losing and his wolf's as well, grated on his nerves. They were all smiling about his defeat, and his temper shot to the surface at her lack of using his name once more. "I have a name, Piper." "Use it," he snapped and stalked off away from her. Needed a hot shower and to calm the hell down. He took the stairs as exhausted as he was, being in that elevator with her and his unit, and all her smugness at her winning and his losing to her might not be a good idea at all, not with his temper on the surface. "Brad, calm down. It was all just a bit of fun, remember?" Cooper's voice down the mind link. "Was it?" he muttered, "or was she trying to put me in my place?" Likely a bit of both. We all went in there, thinking it was going to be a piece of cake to beat her. We were all wrong. She knew before going in, he muttered yet again. "Likely so." Cooper answered him. "Perhaps we need to get to know her better." "Like, I don't want to." He snarled. "She's the one that doesn't want to. Has good reason to be afraid, remember. A lot of pain. You can suffer through one humiliation. For her, can't you?" Felt Benson snort inside his mind. As they stalked into their hotel room, they did not like losing at all, found Cooper standing waiting on him, was looking right at him. He'd yet to answer the man's question, glared right at him for a long minute. "Fine. Order breakfast, I'm starving," and then he headed for his shower. Chapter 42. Piper POV. Standing outside her store with Izzy, Brandon, and Edward, because it seems that man was going to go everywhere that Izzy went. Also meant that Bradley got to have one of his alpha unit with her and Brandon the whole time as well. Thankfully, this seemed was enough security for the man to allow her to go wherever she wanted with Brandon. They were currently waiting on Devin, so she could have that meeting with him about taking over Izzy's position to be the actual manager, not the assistant manager, though Izzy was still put out about this. Unhappy she had to relinquish her newfound job title and promotion. Devin, who was stuck in traffic, was now running late. Izzy had gotten into an argument with Edward about it back at the hotel before they had all left. It was what had woken her up at 2 p.m. today. They were arguing about Izzy wanting to stay here and work at the store, running the store, that it was her first real big promotion, and how she had worked so hard to get where she was. Though she had heard Edward agree with her, He had also told her he had responsibilities in Montana and was needed there, that he couldn't be out here all the time. That Bradley needed him. He was an integral part of the leadership that helped to run Drake Industries. That she would be given a very important role herself within the company. She'd yelled about how she didn't want to be just given something because she was to be his wife, that earning a living was better than inheriting one. The man had just stopped and stared at her. Piper had seen it, a brief flash of full annoyance and a little anger in him. He had inherited his position within the pack, not earned it, and Izzy had just paid him a massive insult. Not that Izzy knew that. Brandon had looked right at her and shook his head. He knew Edward was not human and lived within Bradley's pack, and that Izzy, as Edward's mate, would need to move to the pack. He seemed to understand all of that already. Likely Aspen understood it. But their argument was really starting to get out of hand. Edward was prowling around their hotel suite trying to explain this to Izzy, but Izzy was really upset that Devin was going to be getting her job, and she was losing everything she had worked hard for. For not only was she losing the position here as a full store manager, she was just now realizing that she was also losing her position in Portland at Piper's store because Edward was flat out refusing to allow a long-distance relationship to see if they would work out, in Izzy's words. He'd told her he already knew they would work out, that he was not going to have a long-distance relationship. It was completely unacceptable and that she needed to come to Montana. Demanding her to move had been the wrong thing to state, and Piper sighed, saw Izzy's reaction to being told what to do. She hated nothing more than that. Her father had been trying to tell her what to do all her life, control her, and now here was Edward doing the same thing. She was going to have to save his butt a second time. Enough. Piper had finally snapped Izzy, "I will build you a store in Helena, Montana, close to where you will be. You can run it." She had to find a way to end their arguing before it turned horrid and Izzy canned their relationship and broke their bond, and Piper could actually see her doing it. Izzy had turned to stare right at her, more than a little shocked by her statement. But it was Edward's relief at her words that made her wonder if Edward was also realizing he was losing his mate. Then he just walked across the room and hugged Izzy. "I can deal with that." Izzy had tried to shove him away, but he'd simply held on to her until she stood there and accepted him, hugging her, submitted to him. Very dominant he was, had to have his way. Piper had just shaken her head at the man's need to dominate everything, though he was all smiles now, as he leaned on her store window, happy as can be, it seemed. She'd saved his butt more than once now, he owed her one, technically two. "I need coffee," she muttered. Looking at her watch, Devin was still a good 5 or 10 minutes away according to his last phone call. She knew there was a coffee shop down the street a few shops down. She'd send Izzy, but she also knew that Izzy wanted to be here for the conversation, so just waited. Brandon had already told her he was bored, like 5 times. She'd given him her phone. He'd left his in the hotel and let him purchase a game to play. He was currently leaning on the window next to Edward, who was helping him or hindering, and she noticed that Izzy was watching the man with Brandon. Wondered if Izzy was contemplating if Edward would make a good father. Most wolves did. Good solid bonds to their offspring if everything went to plan, like it was supposed to. Shook that thought off, stepped away from the store to look down the street, to see how far the coffee shop was, would go and get her own coffee, and saw Devin hurrying this way. She smiled at him, and he raised a hand to her in greeting, let them all into the store. She looked at Brandon, and Edward smiled right at her. "I'll watch him, Piper." Saw Brandon roll his eyes, likely didn't think he needed to be watched. He was going to have to get used to that. It was unlikely Bradley would let him go anywhere outside the pack without someone watching him. Nodded at Edward. She too was going to have to get used to it, she supposed. Headed upstairs to Izzy's office. Perched herself on Izzy's desk, let Izzy sit at her own desk, not something she was going to be able to do for a long while, she supposed. Then apologized to Devin for calling him for this impromptu meeting. Then explained to him the current situation, with Izzy having found Edward, the man downstairs, and that she would no longer be able to run the store here. Allowed Izzy to offer the man her own position as the store manager. He looked a little surprised, with Izzy no longer going to be here, but accepted the job offer with a smile. There was a discussion about his new salary and that he would get Izzy's company car as well. He was happy with that. Told him about the apartment she'd leased for a year. He declined that owned his own home already. Didn't need it. They discussed him helping to find his own replacement. That she would have Izzy go through the previous applications and for the assistant manager's position and send those she thought would be good and let him interview them and pick his own assistance manager from Izzy's approved list. Also informed the man that he would now be answering to Izzy. She would be in charge of overseeing the overseas offices. Waved a hand at Izzy to halt her questions. They could discuss it later. Let him know she would have the contracts drawn up with all the new details and email it to him ASAP. Izzy wanted to keep her furniture for her new office in Montana once the store was built, wanted to have it shipped out there. Piper shook her head at the woman. Just but it all again when your office is built, you've got all the invoices and know what you bought and from where. Izzy powed up at her as they headed downstairs. But Piper, that was my first time picking out office furniture. I want my things. Rolled her eyes and sighed. Izzy, it will be cheaper to purchase it all again than to pack up and ship it all bit by bit as it arrives. Likely also quicker as well. Again that pout fine. Piper caved in on one condition. Yes. Izzy was still smiling. You also have to sign a new contract with me. Now your position within the company has changed. I'll be putting in a few new clauses to suit myself and you have to agree to them. Seeing as you're leaving me, for him, she jabbed a thumb at Edward. I'm not leaving you, Piper. Just working for you at a different location is all. No different to me working here, really. If you say so. Devon locked up and headed off after bidding them farewell. I still need coffee. She sighed and she did. I want a drink to Mum. She nodded, but wanted to talk to Izzy for a moment in private. Looked at the woman, didn't want Edward around for it. The woman had earned her place in goddess gowns and Piper wanted to promote her, make her an official partner to the company. I'll go get us all something, you can wait here. It was Edward, surprised her quite a bit, that he would leave her and Brandon alone, with the view to possibly running away. Then saw the man's hand fall right on the boy's shoulder. This young man can come and help me carry everything. Brandon shrugged, didn't seem to mind it that much, and so she put her order in for a caramel latte. Izzy wanted a latte macchiato. She told Brandon he could have anything he wanted and handed the boy her credit card. Her platinum Amex. Then watched as he walked down the street with Edward, Bradley's Gamma. She knew that Edward would not allow anything to happen to Brandon. Bradley would likely kill him if she and Harper didn't do it first. Walked with Izzy down to their car. It was parked 4 spaces away in the other direction, then they just leaned on it. Do you like Eddie? Izzy asked her. Why do you ask? Piper asked in return. You just let him walk off with Brandon. I did not see that one coming. Izzy was smiling up at her. She shrugged. He won't hurt him. I know that, Piper answered. Turned at the sound of her phone ringing, fished it out of her handbag and frowned at the unknown number, dismissed it and turned to Izzy. I wanted to talk to you about that new position with goddess gowns. Heard her phone chime as a text message came through. Flicked it open. Piper, please pick up, it's Brad, it read. Huffed in annoyance. She had not given that man her phone number. Bloody Edward must have, while she was in her meeting, gotten it from her phone. Heard it ring again and nearly hit the reject button again. Turned it to face Izzy instead. See what your boyfriend did. That's Bradley. She muttered. Sorry, Piper, I'll talk to him about boundaries. None of them understand boundaries. Piper muttered as she hit the answer button to accept the call. Knew he would just keep ringing or texting until she answered him. Bloody alphas always wanting their way. Yes, she answered, fully annoyed that he had her phone number, stepped away from her car and walked a few steps away. Hi, Piper, I have a dilemma. I need your assistance in cleaning up, he told her. Very unlikely, she commented, bored already. Very likely. My movers got arrested at your place and my moving van is still at the police impound. I need you to call and have the charges dropped so they can collect the van, Piper snorted. Damn near laughed out loud. That is a predicament, she nodded. Strolling a little further down the street, fully amused now, she'd forgotten for a moment she'd had her neighbor call the police on his people. Not really my problem, now is that. Piper, please. I have the number for the police station. They are waiting on your call. I don't know if I can do that. Want to do that? She amended her words. You did send men to my house without my permission. She turned around to walk back towards her car and frowned. Izzy was not there, looked in the car, not in it. That technically is theft, what you? Her eyes caught movement across the street as she looked for Izzy, and her phone fell from her hand as she saw two men shoving a struggling Izzy into a SUV. One of them had a hand over her mouth. Piper had heard nothing of the snatching of her friend. She'd been preoccupied with Bradley's call and had left her alone and walked away, even had not expected that anything would happen to her. Didn't often use Harper's wolf hearing, no need in the human world mostly. Izzy, she yelled in panic and bolted right out into the street after her friend. Without thinking about it, someone was trying to kidnap Izzy. What the hell was going on? Saw one of the men turn and look right at her at the sound of her calling out Izzy's name. He looked right at her. Philip, Izzy's father's lackey. She knew that man. Felt Harper snarl inside her mind as he slammed the door shut. Finally having gotten Izzy inside the vehicle. Felt a car she'd unfortunately run out directly in front of clip her right leg, cried out in pain as she went sprawling onto the road itself. Car horns were suddenly blaring and tires were screeching all around her as other vehicles tried to avoid hitting her as well. She tried to get up, stumbled and fell down as she looked at the SUV as it started to pull away down the street. Piper could see Izzy was fighting and trying to get out of the SUV. The kiddie safety locks on the doors had to be activated, only allowing for the doors to be opened from the outside as the SUV drove away. She still couldn't get up. Something was wrong with her leg, her knee specifically. There was a woman now standing right in front of her in the middle of the street, yelling at her about how stupid she was for running out in front of her. Piper grabbed onto the woman. "Get me up. My friend just got kidnapped," she yelled right back at the woman. Saw complete shock on the woman's face, and then she was helped up. Looked at the SUV driving away as she leaned on the car next to her. What was she to do, Eddie? She roared with all she and Harper had. Surely the man's hearing would register it. Saw the woman's hands snap over her ears. "Sorry," Piper apologized to her, and then hopped around her car, leaning on it so she didn't have to put weight on her leg. She did know that using Harper to help her roar at full wolfen strength would likely hurt the human's hearing, but had no choice. She couldn't go after Izzy couldn't walk at all. So running at full speed was not going to happen. Headed off the road between two parked cars and felt that knee buckle under her weight as she tried to step up onto the footpath, cried out in pain, as not only did she fall down, but landed right on that knee. Damned near screamed in agony. Barely held it in. Tears sprung to her eyes as pain seared through her. Harper, she questioned her wolf as to what was wrong with her. Knee dislocation, she heard Harper snarl at her. She too was in pain from it. Couldn't heal it herself without it being put back into place first. "I'll call an ambulance." The lady was talking at her. Ignored the woman and looked down the street to see if Edward had heard her. She could see him coming, running in her direction. Brandon had been swung up onto the man's back so he could move quicker, she supposed. "Izzy," she yelled, "gray SUV, Hertz hire car," and she pointed in the direction it had driven off. Saw his eyes go wide right before his head whipped around as he skidded to a stop to scan the road and search for her. He and his wolf would be able to spot her in the vehicle easily if it was still in sight. "Go," she yelled at him as his eyes moved to her, and then back to the car. It was getting away, but he also knew she was injured. He was torn. "I'm fine," she yelled out. "Go," looked right at him when his eyes landed back on her. "Brandon." She reached out for him, and he jumped down and ran towards her. Edward was gone in a flash after Izzy. "Mom? I'm all right. Dislocated my knee. Find my phone." She looked around for it. Couldn't be too far away down there. She located it and pointed to it. It was only a few meters away on the footpath. He ran and got it. The screen was completely shattered, but she could see the phone call was still connected to Bradley at the other end. "Izzy just got kidnapped," she rapped out, knowing he would still be on the other end of the line. "Piper, are you all right?" "We're on our way." "Where are you exactly?" "Where the hell is Edward?" She could hear the anger edging his words. Didn't like that he wasn't right there, she guessed. "Yes, and outside my store. He and Brandon were off getting drinks. I asked him to," she snapped at the man. Her pain was horrible and it was affecting her mood quickly. The man was angry about Edward who wasn't with her, when he should be worried that Izzy, Edward's mate, had just been taken clear off the street. Looked at the woman still standing there watching her. "I'm fine, go," she waved her off. "It's fine, I'm not going to press charges, was my own stupid fault," Piper told her through gritted teeth. "Just go." "But you're injured." "Just dislocated my knee. Happens all the time. Don't worry about it." She waved the woman away again. "Piper, where is Eddie?" It was Bradley, still on the line. "Gone on foot after the vehicle." It was Philip, she swore as she moved herself, and pain shot through her knee. "Piper." "Shut it for a minute," she growled at him, as she forced herself up off the ground. Breathed deep and long to calm herself and try to let the pain wash away. Then hopped her way down the street to her car. It was only one away. "Open the back door, in," she told Brandon all the way over. He did as he was told and she eased herself into the car backwards, couldn't get that leg in the car at all, closed her eyes and breathed for a good 30 seconds. Opened her eyes and contemplated putting it back in, but didn't know how to. "Mom," she could hear the worry in his voice. "And Izzy?" "Eddie will get her, if not," she breathed as a wave of pain rolled through her. "That bastard Philip won't get far, sweetie, and I'll bitch slap him into next week. I promise." Closed her eyes again. Frick, her knee hurt. She had never before dislocated anything in her life, and was right this moment thankful that she had not. Picked her phone up from her lap. "Who's talking to Edie?" She knew the line would not disconnect till they were here. Or it was very unlikely anyway. "Harry," came the reply. "Tell him it's Philip." Her dad threatened to have Philip collect her and take her back. If he can't get her, go to the airport. "Piper, are you all right?" "Yes, my knee freaking hurts," she muttered, dislocated. "I don't know how to put it back in," she admitted. "Cooper will do it when we get there. Will hurt like a bitch, Piper." "Hurts like a bitch now," she muttered, could feel Brandon's hand on her, turned and looked at him, could see he was really worried. "It's all right, sweetie. It's all going to be fine. Cooper's going to have to touch you, Piper." She could actually hear the concern come through down the line. "Yay," she muttered. It was Edward who reached her first. He looked more than ticked off. "I'm sorry I walked away for just a moment." She apologized to him. That bastard Philip would never had taken Izzy had she been standing right next to her. "Not your fault," he stated flatly. She knew he was only here without Izzy because that car had gotten away. He couldn't wolf out in public to use everything he had to retrieve her. Indicated her knee. "I tried Eddie." "It's Philip, I saw him. Got hit by a car." Shein saw him nod. He was hunkered down in front of her, lifted up her pant leg and looked at her knee, assessed the damage. "I'm not the right one to put that back car." "Cooper is." She nodded. "I heard already." "Leave us here. Take the car, Eddie." Piper started to get out of the car. "No. Brad is nearly here. I'll take Harry and we'll go to the airport. We already got a man there on the jet. I believe someone would have called him already. He'll be on the lookout." Sounded very unhappy though, and she wasn't surprised. "Her dad spoke to you?" "Called you." He nodded. "Call him to call off Philip. Explain you and Izzy are together. You came to get her." Saw the man's eyes move to Brandon. "It's all right, Brandon. I'll get her back. I promise." She heard him tell the boy, likely knew how much Izzy meant to him. It was almost a full 20 minutes before Bradley, Cooper, and Harrison turned up. Go. She looked right at him, stated without hesitation. She wanted her friend back as much as he did. Found Cooper looking at her as he squatted down on the ground in front of her. "Piper, I have to look at it, and I'm going to have to touch you," he told her calmly. She nodded as she saw Bradley lean down and look into the car at her, and then Brandon and back to her. "Why aren't you with Eddie?" she muttered. "Harry is with him. It's fine." "Piper," it was Cooper, still trying to get permission, she guessed. "Just do it," she muttered. Harper was not going to like it, but she too was in pain from the dislocation. "Just get out of the way fast if Harper reacts," she told him. She could already feel Harper was all bristled inside her mind at just the thought of a wolf touching her. Tried to remind her they had no choice right this minute. Heard the rip of her slacks as Cooper tore the material up the seam and then pushed it aside. Glanced right at her. She knew why. He was looking for Harper, felt his hands on her knee, and instantly there was a low growl emitted from her wolf. His eyes shot to hers, knew he was concerned she was going to attack him, and tried again to calm her wolf. "You ready?" he commented a minute later. Harper's low growl was still persisting. Wasn't likely to stop till his hands were off of her. Piper nodded her head and felt him start to manipulate the injury, and nearly swore as the pain doubled, breathed deeply as he moved it all around until she felt it lock back into place. Took a solid 5 minutes, and although Harper growled the whole time at him, she did not attack him at all. She did seem to understand it was necessary. Flopped down on the seat as the pain started to ease, a sigh of relief. "Not over yet, Piper," Cooper commented. Felt her leg get lifted off the ground and held straight. Knew it was Bradley by the sensation it caused where his hands were on her at her ankle and up on her calf. He got snarled at by Harper as much as Cooper did. She kept her eyes closed, felt something hard slid under the back of her leg, and then was bracing the back of her knee, felt it roll over the front of her knee, opened her eyes and looked at what they were doing. They were locking a brace onto her knee. Cooper looked right at her. "Breath in," he commented. She did, and he pulled the 2 straps of the brace, one above her knee and one below her knee at the same time to tighten it, to fit it to her knee, grit her teeth as pain shot through her knee once more. "All done," Cooper stated. "We need some ice. It needs to be iced to reduce the swelling. We need to go and help get Izzy." Piper sighed and then pushed herself up into a sitting position. "You need rest and painkillers, Piper." It was Bradley. "It's fine," she muttered. The pain was already decreasing, dug into her pocket and got the car keys out, tossed them at Cooper. "Let's go." She could already feel that Harper was working on healing her knee. It was all covered in a light tingling sensations. "Piper, you need rest." Cooper frowned at her. "What I need is to punch Philip in the face." She inched herself back into the car's back seat, bringing her leg in carefully. Then glared at the both of them. When neither of them moved, were just staring at her through the open car door. "Well, I can't drive," she snapped at them both, irritated that they weren't on the move already. Saw them both frown at her and then each other before moving. Chapter 43. Bradley POV. Bradley smiled when he received a text message from Eddie. Damn near made his day. All it read was, "Piper's phone LOL. I'll delete this." How he managed it, Bradley did not know, but somehow Eddie had gotten hold of Piper's phone, unlocked it, and sent him a message from it. He was very curious about that. Would have to ask him at some point. He knew Piper was in a meeting, wondered if she'd put her bag down and the man had gone through it. Didn't know if he liked that idea at all. But if that was the case, he could forgive him because now he had a way to call her, text her, and bug her into talking to him when he wanted to, about whatever he wanted to. But better not just yet. She was still standoffish, might block him if he bugged her too much. Only use it when he needed to for now. But the curiosity was killing him. He texted Eddie on his own phone to find out. "How'd you manage that?" "Brandon and I were playing a game on her phone. She's in her meeting." Brandon went to the bathroom, told him it is not hygienic to take the phone in there. "I'd hang on to it." A smiley emoji. "Well, thank you, Eddie. Remember that when we get to the pack, and you want to punish me for mating Izzy." Bradley shook his head. "Forgiven," he replied. Couldn't punish the man, not now he'd gotten Piper's number for him. He wondered if Eddie was bonding to the boy. To all of them, Piper had not seemed fazed by Eddie going with them this afternoon, apparently just rolled her eyes at Eddie. Bradley had not wanted her to leave with Brandon, but with Eddie with her, he had to tell himself they would all be fine. It was good for her to be with Eddie anyway, would give her time to get to know him and build some trust, especially considering the man was likely going to be sleeping in her hotel suite and pretty much hanging out all the time with the 3 of them. Because where Izzy went, Eddie was bound to go. It also appeared that wherever Piper went, Izzy went as well, and of course, so did Brandon. The woman was not getting away from Eddie, unless Izzy went out with him for a meal or a movie, just the 2 of them that was. Eddie was not even giving his mate room to breathe. Poor woman, hoped she liked clingy men. It certainly seemed that's what Eddie was going to be. Bradley left it alone and went back to answering emails from his business and pack-related things when he got one from his father about the moving van and if Bradley had gotten Piper to clear that up yet, so it could be collected. He sighed. No, he had not. Was going to have to try and sort that out today, or at least broach the topic with her, see if she would be willing to assist him or not. Bradley honestly didn't know if she would. Yes, she'd found out he was still her mate, but had not so much as brought it up once. Not before their running challenge this morning or afterwards. All he knew was that Piper had not been impressed by him trying to just up and move her back to the pack. At least he understood some of that now. Still knew she was likely to be against it at this point. She did know that they were still mates, had felt it herself, had not uttered a rejection to him, or at least not yet anyway. He was hoping that she would not at all. He had voiced himself that he had not accepted it back then, that he would not be accepting it now if she uttered it, and he did mean that. It was not always easy to find your goddess-gifted mate, and when you did, you should cherish them. He would cherish her if she would let him, that was. He picked up his phone and dialed Piper's number, had already saved it to his phone, liked that it was in there. She was also actually the only Piper he knew. It was a pretty name. The call was rejected. He frowned at it, and then sighed. Edward had not put his phone number into her phone. So he sent a quick text to tell her it was him, and to please pick up. Then waited a minute before dialing her again. Took a while for her to answer the phone. Likely wondering how he got her number in the first place. Wouldn't take her long to figure it out, though he could tell her something else and spare Eddie her anger. He didn't want her kicking the man out of her hotel suite. She finally answered it after a full minute of it ringing. Thought she wasn't going to yet again, but must have just been contemplating the outcome of not answering it. Yes. No hello. No use of his name yet again, and she sounded very annoyed to have to talk to him. He kept it light on his end. Ignored her annoyance at him calling her. He knew why. She was not expecting him to have her number, and to have to take his calls either. Hi, Piper. He even smiled, liked knowing he could call her any time he wanted to. I have a dilemma. I need your assistance in cleaning up, he told her honestly. Very unlikely. He heard her comment. Didn't sound as though she believed him, or didn't care to help him out. Bradley wasn't entirely sure. She was very hard to read, even when she was right in front of him. Piper, it seemed, had very good control over her emotional responses, with the exception of anger and aggression. That she had no problem with showing, but everything else seemed to be masked by her. Only Eddie was able to pick up her internal emotions. Very likely. He told her and explained about his movers being arrested and the current need for her assistance, and he actually did need her to call, a video call at that, so the officers could verify who she was. Heard her clear amusement at his current situation, got the feeling she was very happy about his position. That is a predicament. Not really my problem, now is that? Bradley nearly sighed out loud. She might be fully amused, but only because he was not getting what he wanted. Piper, please. He breathed evenly, kept control of his tone, didn't want his annoyance at her not assisting him to show, told her he had the direct number for her to call the police officer in charge. I don't know if I can do that. Made him shake his head, didn't know if she could do that. Of course, she could, would take her all of 10 minutes in all likelihood. She either wanted to play him along or just outright didn't want to at all. Annoying him further. You did send men to my house without permission, she reminded him. Bradley held in the heavy sigh that was trying to escape him. Heard Cooper snort amusingly from the other couch, obviously listening to their conversation. Cooper had actually asked Bradley if he should do that. Cooper had not thought it was a good idea, but Bradley, of course, had ignored him. He was the alpha and had wanted her and Brandon in his pack, so had tried to take control of the situation and started organizing it. Now he realized that he should not have, but of course, only in hindsight did he now realize this. That technically is theft, what you... Her words just stopped mid-sentence. His hearing picked up something cracking and smashing, and then Piper's panicked voice as she screamed, Izzy, shot him straight to his feet. His eyes moved right to his phone screen to see if the phone call was still connected. It was. Something was wrong. Heard the screeching of tires and car horns blaring. picked up Piper's voice more distant as she cried out in pain, felt his right knee suddenly coarse with pain. "Piper!" He yelled down the phone, already knew she was no longer carrying it. That sound had been her phone dropping to the ground, and the pain he was feeling. She was injured, he just knew it. He could feel fear welling up inside of him. Benson was up inside his mind, agitated as well, had not liked hearing her fear when she'd called out for Izzy or the pain in that cry a moment later. Up, he roared to Cooper and Harry, and he was on the move, heading for their car. She'd last been seen at the store, and Eddie had not texted him to say they'd gone anywhere else, so that was the likeliest place to head for. Put his phone on speaker and heard her roar. Both she and Harper together for Eddie. His heart was suddenly racing. They were in trouble. There would be no other reason for her to roar like that. But why did she need to? Why is he not there? He snarled angrily. The man had been told to stay with them at all times. Where the hell was he? If Piper had to roar like that to get his attention. I'm calling him now, it was Harry. They were all taking the stairs, could use their wolf speed unchecked and unseen to get down to the car, much quicker than having to wait on the elevator. He felt more pain course through his leg. They might not be marked or mated, but he was feeling pain. Her pain, and it was real. She's injured. He suddenly burst out, realizing he was not carrying the med kit. There's traffic, could have been hit by a car, Cooper verbalized for him. Brad had heard tires on the road and horns blaring, his eyes widened. How badly injured was she? There was no pack around here for medical attention. The med kit, he cursed himself. On it. Cooper was going back in the other direction, back to the suite. Brad could hear her talking to a woman who was stating she was going to call an ambulance. How stupid he was to have forgotten to pick up the med kit, was now wasting valuable minutes in which he should be driving to her, waiting for Cooper to go all the way back up there, retrieve it, and bring it all the way back down. Damned man also had the hire car keys, so they had to wait for him in the hotel's underground car park. Cooper was their medic on all trips. His uncle was the pack's doctor, Dr. Samuel. He had taught Cooper quite a bit of medical stuff to help with emergencies while they were away from the pack. Cooper came back and tossed the med kit at Harry while he was still moving. He didn't seem to care that he was still using wolf speed in full view of any humans down here as he unlocked the car and got in. Heard Piper yell out Izzy again, and then started rattling off details of car, told Eddie to go. She would be fine, called for Brandon. The boy must have been with Eddie, wherever he had been. Sounds like Izzy is in trouble, he muttered, though he was still unhappy that Eddie was not right there with her. If he had been, she likely wouldn't have been injured and in pain. Heard Brandon's worried voice and her tell him her knee was dislocated. To get her phone, the boy did exactly as he was told, seemingly without hesitation. Likely they weren't that far from her phone. He was picking up everything quite clearly, thankfully. No wonder his leg hurt. Her voice came down the line loud and clear. She had the phone. Izzy just got kidnapped. Heard Harry's horrified gasp from the back seat, and Cooper swore while he was navigating the traffic. He knew Harry had called Eddie, but the man had not picked up and wasn't likely to, was in all likelihood running on foot after that vehicle. Bradley prayed that Timber wouldn't rip out of him and scare the hell out of the humans. He knew Eddie and Timber were out of control where Izzy was concerned. It was completely possible that Timber would assert full control and let loose in the city to get her back. He'd already ripped out of Eddie once in Maine. Though she had been running away at the time, she clearly was not going of her own volition this time. Asked if she was okay, where she actually was, still at the store. Thank the goddess, they were already on their way there. A good thing we're headed right for her. There are no wolves here, Brad. It was Harry. Who would take Eddie's mate in broad daylight with him right there? No one even knows about her. I don't know, he shook his head. But Harry was right. There were no wolves here, and even if there were, there was no way they would know about Izzy. Bradley was more than annoyed to hear that Eddie had been off getting coffee when all this went down. He didn't really care that Piper had told him to go and do it. The man should have known better. Then she was trying to persuade the human woman, likely the one who'd hit her with her car, to leave, that she didn't need an ambulance. Waited for her to stop, and then asked exactly where Eddie was. No surprise, gone on foot after the vehicle. It was Philip, she told him, shocked everyone in the car. heard Harry's wolf snarl all aggressively from the back seat, turned and looked right at him, found Axel right there on the surface, clearly unhappy about the matter at hand. They'd met Philip. More pain coursed through his leg, and he was told to shut it in a very aggressive manner. Could actually feel more pain radiating through his leg, wave after wave of it. He didn't take the being yelled at personally. He could actually hear through the phone she was moving down the street, trying to walk or hop, he thought. It was causing her more pain. Made him rub his actual knee at one point. Felt Cooper look right at him. You can feel her pain, he gasped. I can. Bradley admitted with a nod. A strong bond you'll have when you claim her. He could only agree. He did know that some mates could feel each other's pain of injury and even childbirth on the odd occasion through their bond. That won't be fun for him, he thought. Once again, she was talking to Brandon. Finally heard Harry get a hold of Eddie. It didn't sound like good news, sounded as though the car had gotten away from him. Nearly laughed when he heard Piper mutter she was going to bitch slap Philip into next week. Made Bradley wonder if she had met the man at some point in time. It was entirely possible. Clearly she did not like the man. She might only know of him from what Izzy told her, though it appeared she was holding a personal grudge against the man. Listening to her explain about Philip and Izzy's father only made him mad. If they had known this prior to right now, it could have meant this incident could have been stopped before it happened. They could have prepared for it, but he did not chastise her about it. Eddie could do that later when they got Izzy back. Told her Cooper would be able to fix her knee, but that the man would have to put his hands on her. Knew she was not going to like it at all. Harper certainly wasn't, neither did Cooper. He could already see the frown on the man's face. She had already threatened to rip his hand off once, just for a brief touch to her back. Realignment of a dislocated knee was going to take more than that. A full assessment and likely 2 hands to move and adjust it until it popped back into place, depending on the type of dislocation, of course. Bradley was hoping it wasn't one of those ones that required surgical intervention. He could hear her talking to Eddie. He'd come back to her car. The man sounded angry and sad at the same time that the car with his mate in it had gotten away from him, was upset with himself. Probably no point in yelling at the man. He and his wolf would both be berating each other, or themselves, for not staying with her. But who would have thought that Izzy's human mate would be kidnapped in a country without werewolves? No one here would have thought it, likely not even Piper. The minute he arrived, Harry jumped right into the driver's seat ready to head off after Izzy. Piper was yelling at Eddie to go, and he did not hesitate for a second. Then she was glaring right at him, practically demanding to know why he wasn't going with Eddie to find Izzy. That was simple for him. She was his mate, not Izzy, and she was injured and he needed to be here with her. Why would he go off and leave her alone and in pain? Eddie had Harry, and the two of them were not about to let Philip get Izzy out of the country. There was no way, not unless they had her passport, which Bradley had no idea about. He knew Piper carried hers all the time, but did Izzy? Glanced in the car past Piper to check on Brandon. He was sitting there biting his lip, but looked okay, worried, not scared. Likely Aspen was talking to him. Smiled at him with reassurance when he looked at Bradley. But then the boy's eyes moved back to his mother, and Bradley realized this was probably the first time he had ever seen her injured. Watched as Cooper assessed the injury. Lots of bruising, nil blood to be seen. A bonus. Not the worst I've seen. Cooper mind-linked him. I got this. You just be ready to fend off your mate's wolf. Will do. Bradley acknowledged. He did like how they all called her his mate now. It took several minutes to realign the knee, and it was not a comfortable feeling for him. He could only imagine what Piper was feeling was way worse. He heard it click right back into place and saw her flop down on the back seat. Understood that. His pain was nearly non-existent now as well. Assisting with putting that brace on, had to breathe through that himself. Still found touching her bare skin very hard to do. So damned hot to touch. Saw Cooper look right at him. Likely picked up on the fact that his heart rate was shooting through the roof and that he was trying to control his own breathing as well. Think about something else. He was mind-linked. Trust me, I'm trying. Bradley had muttered back, put her leg down the minute he could. Damned woman felt like she was addictive. Breathed in deep calming breaths a few times. Also noted the minute that brace was on, His pain was gone altogether. She was also talking about going after Izzy and wanting to punch Philip in the face. Clearly did not like the man. Was not going to let it go, was already pulling herself into the car and had tossed Cooper the keys. One-track mind it seemed. Chapter 44. Piper POV. Finally, they both got the message and got in the car. It was moving and they were headed after Izzy. Piper leaned back in the back seat. There was nothing she could do about it till they got there, so try to stay calm and let Harper heal her up as best she could. Felt Brandon's small hand in hers, opened her eyes and looked at him, smiled at him softly. It was going to be all right, they would get Izzy back. She was taken by two humans is all, and though Izzy herself was still human, she was bound to a werewolf. Nothing but death separated a bonded pair. Eddie would never give up the hunt, and Piper knew it. Eddie would catch up to them at the airport or Izzy would holler at the police once there. There was no way in hell she was going home with Philip of all people. Her father should have come for her himself. And how they were going to get her through customs without her passport. They couldn't. Closed her eyes and swore, "Don't go to the airport, they're not there, Izzy's passport will be with her luggage at the hotel." "Do you think she'll take them there?" It was Bradley. Piper thought about that for only a minute, then nodded, "Yes. She'll be looking for an opportunity to get away and head for your room, you and your men. Seeing as I'm here and Eddie." "Good." Cooper head for the hotel. It's a good assessment and covering both places is a good plan. She found his eyes on her. "What?" "Nothing. It's a good plan. It just makes sense is all. Can't even buy a plane ticket out of the country without passport numbers. I should have thought of it right away." "You were injured, Piper, a lot of pain and so likely distracted." Saw his eyes move to Brandon. "We'll get Izzy back. I'll not stop looking and neither will Eddie till we have her back. I promise you this." Looked at Brandon herself. He did look very upset. Wanted to pull him into her lap, but couldn't while the car was moving, smiled reassuringly at him and squeezed his little hand gently. There was not much she could do but reassure him at this point. "Is the pain bad?" he asked quietly. "Not so much now, only at the time, and Harper is already healing me. Feels all tingly when Aspen heals my cuts and grazes. It does, kind of like pins and needles." Piper smiled down at him, but without that hideous pain on movement. "I hate that bit when I sit on my feet too long and then got to get up." Brandon shuddered. She smiled, "No one does. Very annoying for all." They pulled up outside the front of the hotel, and Piper realized that it was likely that neither Bradley or Cooper would know what Philip looked like. Asked that very question as Cooper got out the car. Got a resounding no from both of them. And why would they? He was human and of no consequence to them or Eddie, or shouldn't have been. Watched as Cooper opened Brandon's door and leaned in and unbuckled the boy, then just picked him up from his seat and took him from the car. Surprised her more than a little, even more that Brandon just allowed it. Guess he was learning to trust them already. He had seen them come to aid and help her. She also knew he was actively getting along with Eddie. Though it had looked like Eddie was hindering Brandon playing his game on her phone at the store, she'd seen the boy smile a few times, and Eddie had, apparently while she was sleeping, congratulated the boy on beating Harry and told him they would have a rematch. He was cheated into losing. Brandon had told him he was on, that the challenge was accepted. Though Eddie also told him he was not going to challenge Piper herself. That had made her smile. Not even Bradley could beat her, wondered how long he was ticked off about that. Bradley was standing holding her car door open, while she eased her leg out of the car. She'd waved his hand and his offer of assistance away. Did not need a repeat of what had happened at dinner last night, when he'd touched her. Winced as she put actual weight on her knee, but it was bearable. Saw him frown as she winced, but what did he expect? Wasn't going to miraculously heal itself. Put most of her weight on the other foot as she turned and looked around. She actually knew what that higher car looked like. Even the number plate. Scanned the immediate area for it, son of a bitch. She growled as she saw it parked a few cars down and across the street. That's the higher car that took Izzy. She pointed to it, took a step towards it, regardless of the pain it shot through her knee. "I'll go," Bradley stated, putting a hand on her shoulder to stay he. She looked right at him as she heard the hard edge of his voice. He was all alpha right this minute, she realized, as she watched him stride away. Someone had just kidnapped his Gamma's mate, and though Izzy was not an official member of his pack yet, they all knew Izzy was bonded to Eddie, and it was only a matter of time and all the major details being explained to her. Bradley will sort this out, Piper, Cooper informed her, though he did not go after the man. I know he will. Piper nodded, and she did actually know that call Eddie, Philip, and Izzy are here somewhere. She watched as Cooper put Brandon down on the hood of the car, uncaring about any damage it may do to the hire car. He fished out his phone with one hand while keeping the other on Brandon, likely just making sure he wasn't going to fall off or run off. Piper looked right at Brandon. He seemed comfortable with Cooper touching him, though the boy was watching Bradley as he stalked his way over to that SUV, and the man sitting inside it, to have words with him about Izzy. Wondered if Cooper was keeping contact with Brandon for a reason. They'd all seen how attached to Izzy he was. Wondered if both Bradley and Cooper were worried that Boy's Wolf would appear and try to assert himself. It was a possibility, she supposed. Not even she knew if he would shoot to the surface and try to take on Philip if they laid eyes on him. Turned at the sound of an American accent, male, and sounded more than annoyed. Just do as you're told, for once, and you won't get hurt. Found herself looking right at Philip as he was coming out of the hotel's front door with one hell of a grip on Izzy's upper arm. She could already see there was bruising on the woman's arms from where they had manhandled her into their car in the first place, dragging her across the street and fighting to get her in the car when she'd not wanted to. Could see right this very minute that his fingers were digging into her arm painfully so, and could see the pain on Izzy's face. She looked more than upset as well. Her usually neat hair and appearance were gone. She looked disheveled now. Her hair messy, and Piper could tell she'd been crying as well. Shot of the mark regardless of the pain in her knee, and it hurt to blazes. Felt that knee actually give, but the brace held, and she was able to move and stay upright because of it. Ignored the pain that rushed her knee, knowing she had likely just done more damage to it, but Izzy was more important than her knee. Izzy was glaring up at the man who was dragging her by the arm, and Philip didn't see Piper coming at all, too busy focused on Izzy and trying to get her to do what he wanted of her. She was on him fast. Her hand landed right on his forearm, and she let Harper loose on him, felt all her strength pour into her grip on him, so very tight he would be forced to let Izzy go. And the minute his fingers loosened, she yanked Izzy free from his grip altogether with her other hand and turned her away. She knew there was no way Philip could keep his grip on Izzy, not with Harper literally crushing his forearm. You son of a bitch. She snarled right up at him. Heard him gasp in pain and saw his other hand come up to hit her, smiled right at him. Yes, hit me. She practically dared him, blocked that hit with ease and slashed it down and away from her as she'd trained how to once. Then twisted that arm she had hold of till he was crying out in pain, heard it cock and break and his scream of pain. Then they let him go, but only to put her foot into his knee. Watched with satisfaction as he dropped to the ground on one knee, more pain issuing from him, grabbed a fist full of his hair and yanked his head back to force him to look up at her. You ever touch my friend again? She grated out and leaned right down to him. Her face a mere inch from his. Harper pushed forward to stare him down. You'll suffer an eternity of pain. I'll break every bone in your body. They snarled at him, and to make sure he understood the clear meaning of their threat, punched him right in the face and heard his no break, saw blood run down his face. She could smell the fear coming off of him. Harper's presence had scared him. Not so tough now, she thought, as she glared down at him. He was looking right into her white eyes, not Piper's normal brown ones, which he would have seen when he'd looked at her for the first time. Heard Harper emit a low menacing growl, and he was backing away from her. The minute she let his hair go, good, he seemed to have gotten the message loud and clear. Piper, it was Izzy. They turned and looked at her, saw Izzy's eyes widen and Harper receded and allowed Piper control again. Are you all right? Piper asked her, took a step over to where Izzy was standing and hugged the woman. I was so worried. She whispered and meant it. She did not want to lose her friend like that. Felt Izzy hug her back. Where's Eddie? She asked softly. Looking for you at the airport. Piper leaned back to look at Izzy, taking in her appearance further, looked at the bruises on both her arms, and then frowned at the red mark on her left cheek. She'd not seen that before. "Did he hit you?" She reached up and touched the woman's cheek gently. Izzy nodded. "I tried to get away from him, thinking I could get to Mr. Drake in his room. When he caught up to me, he slapped me for it." There were tears in her eyes now. Piper's eyes turned back to Philip. Oh, he was a dead man. She could feel Harper's anger mingling with her own at this news. Let go of Izzy and shot towards Philip. All their anger on the surface was going to pay back in kind with all the strength they had. Only to be yanked clear off the ground, knew it was Cooper right away. "Calm down, Eddie will deal with him," he told her as he turned her away from the man. She screamed at him in her rage, to be put down, as he denied her right to beat the hell out of that pathetic man. How dare to not only kidnap her friend, but hurt her as well. Found herself carried away completely and taken back to the car, put right in front of Brandon. "Enough, Piper. Human world, calm Harper. I understand the need." "Let me go," she snarled at him, but he had her arms pinned to her side in a vice-like grip. He was clearly much stronger than she was. "I'm not Eddie, I can't calm you down, so either calm yourself or deal with me holding onto you." Turned her head to look at Philip over the man's shoulder and saw Bradley hauling Philip up off the ground. He was also dragging another man. The one from the car, she supposed, had a hand around that man's elbow. Neither of them were a match for him and his alpha wolf strength. "Where is Izzy?" she gasped, panicked as she could no longer see the woman. "I'm right here." She heard Izzy's soft voice and turned to look at her. "Piper." "I'm all right," she told her, and felt calmer just seeing her. "I've never seen you this mad before." Izzy murmured and bit her lip, seemed a bit nervous. "I try not to get mad." Piper admitted, "I'm sorry you saw that." She knew Izzy would have seen Harper on the surface. It had been unavoidable at the time. "What was it?" "Not here." Cooper interrupted them. "Let me go, Cooper." She sighed. "You sure you're good?" he asked right back. Didn't sound as though he believed her. "Yes," she nodded, and she was released tentatively. He stepped back from her, and she turned to look at him, gasped as her niece screamed at her. She had used it to kick Philip, looked down at it, gritting her teeth. "That will need realignment again," Cooper told her, sounded like he was disapproving of her actions. She did not really care what the man thought, put all her weight on her good leg, reached out a hand to hold Izzy's hand. The woman had just seen Harper on the surface, but hadn't run off, was still standing there with her. She didn't seem to be all that scared about it, and Piper, for one, was really glad she did not want to scare her friend. "You called Eddie?" she asked Cooper. "I was on the phone with him when you shot off after Philip. He is aware and on his way back now." "Stay right here." Cooper told her, "I need to go and assist Brad to take those two upstairs." His eyes moved from her to Brandon and he frowned. Piper knew what he was thinking, that without anyone from the Alpha unit here to watch her, she could put Brandon in the car and leave, run away. "TM not going to get far," she indicated to her injured knee. Not to mention he was holding her car keys still. "You run," he warned her. "We won't." It was Brandon and he was getting off the car, stepped between her and Izzy and stared up at the man. Cooper looked right at the boy. "Do you understand, Brandon? Your father is not just going to walk away." "Yes." He nodded up at Cooper. "Hunt us if we do." "Correct." Cooper nodded and then just turned and walked away towards the hotel's front doors. "He can be a little scary," Izzy murmured. "We can all be," Piper nodded. "What happened to you?" "Ran out into traffic to try and get to you, stop Philip from taking you, and got clipped by a car, busted my knee. It was fixed, not so much now." She sighed. "Eddie is going to be really mad when he gets back." "I didn't leave on purpose." "No, not at you, Izzy." Piper smiled. "At your state, your bruises, that hit to your face, where he comes from, he has rights to punish any who would harm you." She shrugged. "I think you beat up Philip pretty good." "Won't help, just be prepared, he might." How did she explain it? "Look different, his eyes." She stared right at Piper as if challenging her to deny it. "Yes." Piper nodded. "I've seen his eyes bright green before." She shrugged. "Guess you knew about that." "Normal, where they come from." "Where you came from?" "Your eyes were white." Piper sighed. Yes, she knew Harper had been on the surface. When they'd looked at Izzy, she just confirmed it. Opened the car door and sank down to get off of her knee. It didn't take Cooper long to come back. He frowned down at her. I can fix that here, or carry you up to your room and fix it there, he stated flatly. Here's fine. Piper muttered, would rather it be fixed than be carried. He removed the brace and looked right at her pointedly. You dislocate it again. Before it heals properly, you'll likely need surgical intervention. Do you understand me? Piper nodded. She got it. Harper didn't even snarl at the man. She still just wanted a piece of Philip mostly, seemed to understand and be okay with Cooper helping them again. She knew they had been impulsive and risked re-injuring themselves, and had done just that. With the brace back on, they could manage a hobble and some light pressure on her knee, but after 5 steps, the pain was too much. Came to a standstill on her good leg, heard Cooper sigh, you bite me, I'll bite back. And then he picked her up and carried her into the hotel. She had no choice, was not going to be able to walk all the way across the lobby and then down the hall to her room. They were escorted back to their room, and Cooper put her down on the couch, looked right at her. I'll leave you all here. Eddie will want to see Izzy. I'm aware of how things normally work, Cooper. Piper muttered. Good to see you recall some things. Cooper murmured, then looked at her knee. Ice it. Don't walk on it, period, until Harper tells you it's okay. He stared right at her for a solid minute, then turned to Izzy. Do you need medical attention? No, she shook her head. Then I'll take my leave. Am needed somewhere else. He stood and left without another word. All beta mode, she thought. Spill it. Izzy turned on her. Piper sighed. Sit down and don't freak out. Oh, I'm already freaked out. Izzy muttered as she sat down. Mum? She could hear the worry in Brandon's voice. She has to find out sooner or later. She is Eddie's mate. She clarified for him. He knew what a mate was now. Mate? Izzy asked. Yes, Izzy, and you're bonded to him already, so take a deep breath. Watch the woman do just that, and after a moment allowed Harper to push forward. The woman had seen her once already, so there was no harm in it. This was what she wanted answers on. Allowed Izzy to really look at her for as long as she liked. Watched the woman's eyes move to Brandon's after several minutes of contemplation. His wolf Aspen pushed forward, but only for a brief moment. That's just plain weird. Izzy shook her head. Harper is of no threat to you. Piper offered up. Harper? Like what Cooper just said, and you used that name yesterday, threatened Eddie with it in fact. Yes, and I did. She nodded. Harper is my inner wolf. Wolf. Izzy snorted and sounded fully amused. Yes. I'm not human. Well, I mostly am nowadays. That got her attention. Now Izzy was staring at her, so she sat and waited. The woman would either accept it or fear it and run away. Piper didn't think Izzy would run away though. She'd known Piper and Brandon a very long time. What are you, them? Eddie? She was frowning. What do you think we are? Piper countered. Izzy was an intelligent woman, and she had seen and heard the wolf side of likely most of them now. Definitely Eddie's. He growled at her, and she was pretty certain that Izzy had mated to Timber, which meant she had likely seen him on the surface as well. And she knew she'd seen Timber in the flesh. That wolf had not liked her running away. Bradley had told her that Benson, his wolf, had growled at her and scared her for that matter, sat and just watched her as she stood and paced around the room a good 10 minutes of staring at her and Brandon, pacing some more, and then she shook her head and sighed. I want to say something, but it'll sound completely crazy. That was a good statement. Likely was on the right track. Say it anyway, Izzy. Piper encouraged her. Saw her friend look right at her. Werewolf. Correct. Piper nodded. Harper is the name of my wolf. Aspen is my wolf. Brandon told Izzy. Sounded not only happy to tell Izzy this, but proud as well. Liked having his wolf, she realized. Saw Izzy's frown deepen, and then she came and sat back down, stared right at her some more. Is Timber Eddie's wolf? Yes. Piper nodded. Yes. Piper nodded. So, the other day. Yesterday. That was Timber. Piper smiled. Yes. His wolf, it seems, is crazy insanely in love with you, as much as Eddie is. You knew all along. She pointed a finger at her. I did. It's why I warned you. and her brow furrowed, then her eyes widened. That wolf stalking my car in Maine? That Harry was wrestling, that was Eddie. That was Timber, but yes, technically Eddie too. Wow, she leaned back on the couch, was taking this really well. A good thing he was the biggest damned wolf I've ever seen. For now. Saw Izzy's brown eyes turn on her, there are bigger wolves. It's likely both Cooper and Bradley are bigger in wolf form. How big is Harper and Aspen? Her eyes moved to the boy. The door to the hotel room banged open and Eddie came rushing into the room. Izzy? Watched as Izzy smiled right up at him, knew everything and still got up and ran over to him, hugged him, and he hugged her right back. I was so worried, Izzy. She heard it in his voice, knew Izzy would too. The man did not care who heard that he had been afraid he'd been going to lose her. You and Timber don't need to worry anymore. I'm right here. She heard Izzy tell him softly. Smiled to herself as she saw Eddie look down at Izzy, a little concerned, but she was not. Izzy had already accepted the idea. Their bond was good and strong, likely always would be. Watched as Izzy reached up and touched his face, tilted her head slightly and really looked at him. Can I see Timber? She asked him. Timber was right there in less than a second. Poor Eddie had no hope. He wanted to see his mate too. She was asking for him, and he would not deny her mine. He growled right at her all possessively. Izzy laughed up at him. Yes, she nodded. Crazy as it is, yes, found herself crushed. Into the man and his wolf, Eddie looked at Piper when control was given back to him. You're welcome, she told him. You know, Eddie, you owe me a lot. He smiled right at her. That I do. He nodded, then put Izzy away from him and frowned at all her bruises. I'll deal with Philip and your father. He told her, stay here, I'll come back, kissed her softly, and was gone. Izzy sank back down on the couch. Life is about to get weird. Yes, it is. Piper nodded. She'd let Eddie talk to Izzy about marking, and that she might gain her own wolf afterwards. Not all humans had the gene, though Piper didn't see that being a problem for either Eddie or Timber, or Izzy for that matter. She was not going to deny either of them, likely just get to choose which one to be with first each night. Timber seemed happy enough mating her in human form. Loved Izzy already. The moon hadn't even risen or set yet, and she knew it would. Today was the full moon. Even things would feel different for Izzy now that she understood and accepted them. She thought Asterisk was good before. Tonight would be a whole other matter for the woman. Arg, they'd better get their own room. She did not need to hear that, nor did Brandon for that matter. Chapter 45. Bradley POV. He stilled Piper with a hand on her shoulder as she took a step to go around him towards that rental car, which she recognized as the one that Izzy had been shoved into. I'll go. He'd told her she was injured and he didn't need her injury getting worse. It was still causing her pain, he knew, because he could still feel it somewhat. This was also his job as the alpha to deal with, not hers. His eyes landed on that SUV. There was a man sitting in the driver's seat. Bradley stalked his way over there. Benson was more than annoyed. These two people, though only one was here, had not only taken his Gamma's mate with the intention of leaving the country with her, they had also caused his own mate pain, emotional pain. He'd heard the panic in her voice, worried for her friend, and then there was the physical as well. She and Harper had been hit by a car in their attempt to get to Izzy. Yanked that door open to the driver's side, startling the man completely. Get out, or I'll drag you out. Benson was all on the surface with him. The man was more than shocked by the sudden abrupt opening of the door, and he did actually get out. I don't want any trouble, take the car. His American accent told Bradley he'd come from the States to help collect Izzy. Thought this was a carjacking by his words. Put his hand on the man. He was relatively well built for a human, and stood 6 feet himself, but with Benson on the surface, Bradley could not only see fear in the man, but could actually smell it as well. Which is what he wanted. Bradley's eyes moved to the sound of Piper's voice yelling at someone. Sighed internally as he felt his knee flood with pain. March, he told the man, as he walked his way back to where Piper was. She was attacking another man, and Izzy was not that far away, a few steps, watching Piper lay into the man. That be Philip? He asked the man. Yes, Isabel's fiancé, he answered. No, he's not. Bradley corrected him, annoyed. Izzy is due to marry Edward in a month. Bradley added curtly, you two just tried to kidnap her. What? The man looked at him, somewhat shocked by Bradley's words. Retrieving her, not kidnapping. Same difference in my eyes. Hers and Edward's as well. Cooper, get Piper already. Her knee is 10 times worse. He mind-linked to his beta. Bradley knew that he could not get both of these two men and contain Piper at the same time. Glanced at Brandon, who was sitting on the car. His head was tilted ever so slightly, like it had been at lunch yesterday. It was likely that his wolf was watching, assessing the situation, ready to surface if needed. He could hear Piper and Harper loose it, turned his eyes back to her to see Cooper had not just gone to retrieve her, had picked her clean up off the ground and was carrying her back to the car. Watched as Izzy followed Cooper, smiled a little to himself, no fear in the woman over what she was seeing, looked concerned and confused, but not at all scared. A good thing to see, considering she had likely just seen Harper on the surface. He could definitely hear Harper. Stalked right past them all, and over to Philip, leaned down and grabbed that man by his upper arm. Philip, I presume. Saw the man's eyes look up to him as Bradley pulled him up onto his feet, saw those eyes widen more than a little with full recognition. Oh, so he knows who I am. Bradley thought the man had met Eddie, likely knew who he worked for, and was obviously not expecting to see Bradley Drake staring him down. You don't ever touch what belongs to me and mine. Bradley snarled right at him as the man steadied himself on his feet, then hauled his blood-drenched face inside the hotel. Philip, it seemed, was having trouble walking, and he was cradling an arm. It did seem Piper and Harper had injured the man quite badly. Likely she didn't like him touching what she thought was hers either. A good fighter she was, certainly not afraid of getting into it. Wolves or humans, it seemed, just stepped up and let them all have it. Didn't know if it was the rogue in her or just her natural warrior instincts. Shoved the pair of them into the elevator, regardless of the looks they were getting from other quests or hotel employees. Mind-linked to Cooper, only got his name out before he got an actual real reply. I'm right here, he stated as his hand hit the elevator doors, stopping them from closing, and stepped inside. Took hold of the uninjured man. Piper, he questioned. Redislocated her knee, not going anywhere. In fact, Brandon assured me they wouldn't go anywhere. Really? Just Brandon? Bradley inquired. That was surprising to him. Might not have just been him. Cooper half smiled. They hauled those two men all the way into their suite and shoved the pair of them onto the dining room chairs. Go and fix Piper's knee, and make sure Izzy is okay or Eddie and Timber will be a nightmare to deal with. Watched Cooper nod his head, and then just turn and leave without so much as a word. I need a hospital, Philip told him. What you need is a dozen or more bodyguards. Because when Edward gets here, and he is on his way, he's likely to tear your arms off, want to kill you for all those bruises on her. Izzy's father was informed of their relationship. I also believe Harry, Edward's brother, told you yourself that they were getting married. She left him. It was also her father who ordered me to come and get her. Bradley snorted with amusement. Did she? Not from what I've seen. They looked very happy and all cozy just this morning. His tone changed to anger. Till you kidnap her, you're lucky it was Piper who handled you first. If it was me, you'd be in the hospital already. He grated out. Though Bradley was curious about the rest of what the man had said, about Izzy's father, he let it go for now. That bitch broke my arm and... Bradley's fist hit Philip's face in a flash, and he fell off the chair he was sitting in. Don't you ever call Piper that. That's my wife you're insulting. Reached down and yanked the man up and glared right at him. Ever. He snarled right at him, felt Benson push all the way forward. I'll kill you. His wolf threatened him, his alpha aura rolling right out of him at the man. Then Benson just tossed him aside, and the man slumped down on the floor in a puddle of his own urine. Probably thought he was some tough human but was not, just a rich bastard used to getting his own way. Bradley's eyes turned to the other man. Name, he grated out. Mason Blyton. I work for the Matthewses. Al. His hands were up already, and Bradley could smell fear coming off of him. Well, Mason, I suggest you quit your job and find a new one, he snapped, then turned back to Philip. The man was unconscious, probably a good thing with the way he was ticking off Benson with insulting Piper. Cooper returned all fixed, both women in their hotel room. Izzy, going to have to talk to her ASAP. She saw Harper and her questions I've stifled for now. Bradley sighed. All right, I guess we'll do that here instead of back home. We'll have to convince them to go though. His eyes moved to Philip again. Should dump him at the hospital. Eddie? Cooper asked. We'll kill him, and Bradley knew that he would, because if that had been Piper, the man would be dead already. Sighed, we'll need to contain him. Or get the police here first. Cooper commented. Unlikely they'll get here before Eddie. So, what are we doing with them? It's not like when back home, and the man can just disappear. No forest, we can just dump their asses into after Eddie kills them. Bradley nodded. So, I guess we could take them home. Let Eddie stew in his anger until we have them in a place where it can be unleashed. Might not make it back. I don't think you want Brandon to see that. He will at some point though. Heard a groan come from the unconscious man. His eyes, however, moved to Mason. The man looked suitably horrified, as was his and Cooper's intention. They had had their conversation out loud, for a reason, to make the man realize the kind of situation he was in. They had been talking casually and openly, though the death of either one of them meant nothing to them, and it was an inevitable end. Mason now understood his life was hanging by a thread. Bradley didn't want to kill the humans. Eddie will be another issue. Though if Philip went missing after this, Izzy would know it was them and might not want to be with him after that. We'll need to use Izzy to contain Eddie and Timber, Bradley sighed. Agreed. Cooper nodded. What happened to make you beat the man? He called Piper a bitch. Benson lost control. Bradley smiled. Cooper smiled as well. Can't scent the woman. But also can't stand anyone insulting the woman. No and no. I want her and so does Benson. Regardless that we can't scent her at this point. And they both did. She was unscentable but was still theirs and they knew it. Didn't even care anymore that they couldn't scent her. Piper knew they were her mate, and both he and Benson believed her. That should go in your favor. Where is he? Came growling down the mind link to Bradley. Eddie's back, Bradley commented aloud, before answering his gamma. I have both men here in our room. Izzy is with Piper. He chuckled softly. Piper beat you to him. He told Eddie, in the hope it would calm him and his beast somewhat. Right? Was the only response. Harry arrived first, looked at the man in his own urine-stained clothing and wrinkled his nose in disgust. Piper did that. Most of it. Bradley smiled. I got one hit in. Made him wonder just how good a fighter she was, had 2 warriors for parents and in all likelihood, took after them herself. Wondered if she'd want to go back into training. Then sighed internally. Recalled she didn't want to be back inside the pack, still had no idea how he was going to get that to happen. Though he had heard from Eddie today, before the shit hit the fan, that Piper had saved his backside again, where Izzy was concerned. Offered to open a store in Helena for Izzy to run. Piper might not want to come home, but even he knew, building or opening a new store meant that she would have to be in Helena herself, so she was actively getting closer to his pack. This was good news to him. He had actually been looking at property and buildings in the area for her new store, wanted somewhere close to his office, was going to do whatever it took to get her back to his state, and then he could work on her from there, one step at a time. That was the plan for the moment. Eddie went right to Izzy? Bradley asked Harry. He did. Needed to see her. No real surprise about that. Bradley nodded. His thoughts had been to get to Piper, his mate, his priority. He'd been worried about Izzy, but Eddie had been there somewhere. So Piper had been his true concern. As Izzy was for Eddie, your own mate always came first. He'd only ever seen a few wolves who could walk away from their injured mates, usually chosen mates. Ones not of their own choosing. Sometimes, when no mate came along, the previous alpha would choose a suitable partner for their heir, and though they bonded it wasn't a true bond, and so caring didn't always happen between the pair. It was the reason he'd told his father he had rejected the idea of a chosen mate, when his father offered to find him a suitable she-wolf to become his Luna. His father had thought that he was helping, because Bradley had not told him of his missing mate. He'd been polite with his father, but he'd not been willing to even risk hurting the one he belonged to, and marking another, while still attached to your destined mate, could kill them. Bradley couldn't do that. He'd had no idea if his missing mate's rejection had been granted by the goddess, but had always hoped not. So he could find her someday, and now that he had, he was truly glad for his own beliefs on the situation he'd found himself in. He could have killed her and left his son out here all alone, not even knowing what he was. Actually sent up a thank you prayer to the moon goddess herself for making him so damn stubborn. So determined to find his missing mate, for only wanting her and no one else. Could have turned out to be a complete disaster if he'd just accepted it and moved on. He was so very stubborn and headstrong, both his father and stepmother would shake their heads at him sometimes. When he said no, he was an immovable rock and they knew it. Eddie stalked into the room, the door damned near banged off the hinges, and he came to a standstill in front of Philip. The man was still sitting on the floor, too injured and in too much pain to get himself up, and none of them had helped him or even offered to. Both his eyes were swollen shut at this point, from the hit he had taken from Piper, which had broken his nose and given the man 2 black eyes, and then the one Benson had gotten in. Poor bastard wasn't doing so well. The man was lucky he was human, or he'd be a bloodied heap on the ground, Benson, and he would have beaten him half to death, and then left him to heal up a bit so Eddie could have finished him off. Piper did that? Mostly remember, he's not like you, Eddie. Bradley reminded him. Piece of shit. Eddie snapped. She's got bruises all over her. Clearly she did not want to go. Bradley watched as Eddie's eyes moved to Mason. The man was still unharmed at this point. Then he turned and looked right at Bradley questioningly. Apparently no idea. Izzy was engaged to you, Eddie, hired to help retrieve her. Retrieve? By her own father. Eddie frowned now. Bradley knew Eddie had spoken to the woman's father at least once, had met the man once at her sister's wedding. From all reports, it should have been clear to her father that Eddie was her boyfriend or more, fiancé. You can deal with her father as you see fit, Eddie. But if either of these two die or go missing, Izzy might. Izzy is fine. Piper has told her everything. She actually wanted to see Timber, accepted him right away, in fact. That surprised everyone in the room. Bradley was happy about it. Piper clearly wanted Izzy to be happy. Perhaps there was real hope for him yet. Perhaps she was not as against wolves as much as she portrayed herself to be. I'm happy for you, Bradley told him honestly. I owe her a lot. She told me so, in fact. Shook his head slightly. So what about them? I really want to rip his head off, he growled angrily. Bradley was actually very surprised the man and his wolf were still standing still, that he and Timber had not gone completely ballistic and all of them were not needed to try and stop him. From everything he had seen about him and Izzy, he was expecting Eddie and his wolf to come in here in a full-blown rage out of control. But he seemed he was in full control of himself. This was the Eddie he'd always known, until Izzy that was. Perhaps the man was only uncontrollable about his actual mate. An interesting thought. The full moon would be here tonight and his human mate had actually just found out the whole truth about not just Eddie, but all of them, he supposed. Not only wanted to see Timber as wolf, but had accepted him. That was a relief. Perhaps that was what was keeping him and his wolf calm right this minute. Eddie? Let me be the one to dump his sorry ass at the hospital. He might have a few more broken bones by the time he gets there, but he'll be alive. You sure about that? Bradley asked calmly. I give you my word, he'll survive. Got to make sure he sees Izzy happy at our wedding, and pregnant with our firstborn as well. Bradley nearly laughed, heard Harry actually snort with amusement. I'll go with him, Brad. Cooper will go as well. Bradley could well imagine how many broken bones a human could survive without dying, waved them off as the three of them collected those 2 humans and walked them from the hotel room. He was not going to interfere if those 2 men had been wolves. Neither would survive, and a war would likely have broken out with Izzy's father's pack, or a sneak in and kill him would definitely have been the least that Eddie would expect. He knew they would take the stairs and not the elevator. Chapter 46. Izzy POV. It was a long and emotionally exhausting day for her. Izzy still couldn't believe that her father had actually sent Philip to come and get her. He knew she wasn't going to ever get back with that man, and had likely been trying to force her hand in bringing Eddie to him for a formal sit-down. It was what he said he'd wanted. The man was insufferable at times. Had to have everything his way. Well, he was about to meet his match, it seemed, in Eddie. Finding out that not only were Piper and Brandon not human, and neither was Eddie, that they were werewolves, she had a feeling her father was about to find out the hard way. It was going to be Eddie's way or nothing at all. This revelation about all of them, and she now understood that Bradley Drake and all his men were not human too, made her wonder about a lot of things around her that she had absolutely no idea about, simply because she was human. Izzy was currently lying in a hot bath which Piper had run for her, once her knee had felt better, though Izzy did note she was still wearing the brace. While it was running, Piper had sat on the edge of the tub and looked at her curiously, asked her how she was feeling about everything she'd learned today. All right, though, can I ask you something about your... Yes, but Eddie will tell you anything you want to know. I kind of want to ask you this, not him. I don't know if I'd get an honest answer from him, thinking maybe he'd just tell me what I want to hear. I doubt that. Piper had replied simply, but ask. So Izzy had you said his eyes would never wander, that he would be faithful. He will be. Wolves mate for life, Izzy. Wolves are very different to humans. He will never stray, she'd smiled at Izzy. He'll never even think about another, and he will crave you all of the time. Itch to touch you. It'll be a lot to handle at first, but you'll get used to it. That's why there's no divorce rate? Izzy asked. Will Eddie and I get married? Or is it different? With mates. It's different for us. But some do marry and you're human, so you'll likely get a nice fancy wedding, and yes, your family will be allowed to attend, likely even have it at your family estate if you want that. Izzy wrinkled her nose and shook her head. She didn't really see herself getting married at the family estate. If I want to, she did ask. Eddie will give you whatever you want. Piper nodded as she got up. You should ask Eddie any other questions. He won't lie to you, Izzy, and there are still many things you'll need to learn and understand. All right. Izzy had nodded. Piper had left her alone after that, and she'd gotten into the bath to relax, had stared up at the ceiling to think about her day. To think about everything since that man had walked into the store in Portland and tried to charm her, wondered about that too. She had been irritated with him quite a bit, and the more he'd tried to charm her, the more she had gotten angry with him. How could she go from being so annoyed with him to just climbing into his bed the next time she'd seen him? She didn't really understand that, but hazarded a guess that it could only be to do with the mate thing. Piper had told her she was his mate and was bonded to him, whatever that meant. That man had tracked her halfway around the world. His wolf had punished her for it, in a good way, for leaving them. Smiled to herself as she recalled thinking she'd run away again just so he would punish her again. That man seemed to know just what she liked too. Bit her lip and wondered what he really liked. She already knew that Eddie was a very dominant man, and got the feeling she was going to learn just how dominant at some point. That first time, she'd not even been allowed to touch him, and she'd wanted to, but no, not until he'd said so. Wondered if she could return that favor. How would he deal with her making demands on him? Chuckled to herself softly at the thought of him not liking it and getting punished for trying it. She would just have to wait and see, she guessed. Might do it a lot to be punished by that man and his wolf. Giggled at the thought. Wondered what Eddie was doing, sighed to herself and had to admit she did miss him already. Which was very silly because she'd only seen him like an hour ago and had spent the entire day with the man as well before Philip had turned up. Normally she liked her own space, but maybe after today's events, she just needed him close by. Felt safer with him right here with her. Closed her eyes and relaxed, switched her mind off from everything and focused on just the warm feeling of the soothing water. Opened her eyes to find Eddie sitting on the side of the tub, just watching her it seems. He smiled right at her as she gasped, "Gosh, you startled me." "How long have you been there?" "Not long," he smiled. "You fell asleep in the bath." "I guess I did." "It's been a long day," she nodded. No bubbles left. He grinned right at her, slid his eyes over her naked body in the water and growled a little at her. She laughed softly up at him. Did love that growl, and at least now she knew why he did it, could do it. Either I'm getting in or you're getting out, baby. He smirked right at her. Your choice. Izzy looked at the bath. He was not going to fit in this tub with her. Out, I guess. I don't think we'd both fit. We will in my tub. He grinned right at her and then stood up, grabbed a towel for her, even wrapped her up in it when she stepped out of the bath. Then pulled her right into him, tilted her chin up and leaned down and kissed her all soft and slow. She wound her arms around his neck and pressed herself up against him. Felt him pull away with a soft growl. Brad will murder me if we keep this up, with Brandon in it, sweet. Why? She smiled up at him, knowing where it was leading. It's just. Wolves have very good hearing. What? Brandon will hear us, as will Piper. I have to refrain, not that I want Izzy. He released her. Come on, to your room, I need to put clothes on you. What if I don't want to? Izzy teased him. Oh baby, don't tease me, I'll really get a beating. He smiled down at her. Izzy frowned a little, for although he was smiling, he kind of sounded like he meant it. For real? Yes, we have different laws. The number one law. Do what the alpha tells you or get punished. Oh, she thought about that. Guess she didn't really realize how much things were going to change. So, everyone has to do what Mr. Drake says. You can call him Bradley or Alpha, and yes. Why Alpha? She asked him curiously as she walked to her room. Because Bradley is the alpha wolf. He rules the pack we belong to. So, you do what you're told to, like, all the time? Mostly, she saw Eddie nod. Punishments can be quite severe, but don't worry about that. Brad is fair and a good alpha. His pack likes him. We all respect him and abide by his rules. Izzy sank down on the bed in just her towel and looked up at him now. Piper. She knew Piper didn't do as Bradley wanted, outright wouldn't, didn't want to, and likely wasn't going to. Piper has different rules to you and I. There is a lot going on there that needs sorting out. Will take a while yet. Watched him sigh a little on the heavy side, and realized he looked a little sad even as he sank down on the bed next to her. Do you know what happened between them? To them? She asked. She was very curious. Piper had not liked Bradley from the minute he had walked into the store, but then they did also have Brandon. I do, he nodded. It's not for you and I to discuss. They need to sort that out themselves. Might actually be able to tonight. The full moon is here and will set soon. What's that mean? She didn't understand, still had a lot to learn, like Piper told her. It's when you can send out your mate, lay claim to them. That got her attention. She frowned right at him. That's not what you did. I was naughty. But I was pretty sure you were my mate. Pretty sure. As the Pax Gamma. Which is my rank, third in command actually. He smiled at her now, but as a Gamma I can't actually charm my own mate. It doesn't work on them. The charm just makes a Gamma's mate mad, really mad. You Izzy, I could not charm at all and I did try. A telltale sign you were my mate. So am I your mate? She asked. Felt his finger trail along her lower lip a moment later and saw his mouth curve into a smile. Yes. Do you feel that? He asked her. Izzy frowned at him, didn't really understand what she was supposed to feel, though his finger was hot on her skin. Feel what? Tell me, Izzy. How does it feel when I touch you? Felt his fingers trail softly down her neck. Sighed softly, hot and tingly, smiled right at her. Felt his hand caress the side of her neck and closed her eyes. As a moan escaped her. That's the mate bond you're feeling, and it'll get stronger soon. His voice was soft and a little husky. Izzy looked right up at him, saw his smile turn to a smirk. Ah, you want me? He sounded very pleased right this minute. I do. She nodded and climbed right on top of him, pulling her towel off as she did so. Claimed his mouth for herself, heard him groan and got pulled hard up against him. Izzy. He growled softly a minute later. We can't, not in here. Moved herself against him and sighed. She really did want him. Can we go to your room then? She asked softly. We could. He smiled at her, but I'm kind of on duty right now. Not fair, I know. On duty? She questioned. Didn't understand that at all. And then, keeping an ear out for Piper, he sighed. She's not going to run away, Eddie, now that Brandon knows about Bradley. She won't deny him the right to get to know his father. She always gives Brandon whatever he wants. This will be no different. That is a relief to hear, and he did actually sound relieved. she realized. They were actually worried that Piper would run away. Silly. So can we? She pushed him all the way down on the bed and bit his lower lip, tugged on it, even just a little. She whispered and moved her naked body against his. He was still fully clothed, but that could be fun too. Eddie smiled right at her. No S**X. Brad will be really mad, but then she was underneath him and his mouth was on hers, kissing her deeply. She smiled when his mouth left hers. She was going to seduce the man into what she wanted. His mouth found her neck and goddess, she couldn't stop herself. Her whole body arched up to his, and she rocked herself against him, gasped and moaned softly when his mouth hit the crook of her neck, bit softly at her flesh, grabbed his hips and pulled him hard against her, wrapped her legs around him, and found him grinding against her as she was him. His mouth found hers. It was hot and hungry, as his body moved against hers till she was gasping underneath him. Fuck, he groaned. Izzy. Yes, she gasped, and rocked even harder against him. Eddie, she cried out, was so damned close, could feel how damned hard he was for her, and he was moving against her in just the right way. His mouth was on hers, as she moaned right into his mouth, as his pace quickened and her cries muffled by his kiss. Izzy, we have to stop. He groaned, I'll lose all control otherwise. Slid her arms around him and her hands into his hair. I'm sorry. She kissed him softly. I don't know. Saw him actually smirk down at her. It's your need to claim me, and I want you to. I really do. Give me a second. I'll see if Harry will come watch Piper. She frowned. He didn't move at all, but then saw him frown a moment later, and then was half up off of her. His head whipped around and tilted to the left slightly. Fuck, he muttered, sounded very unhappy. What? She didn't understand. He hadn't even called his brother yet. Piper's not in this suite anywhere. He got up. I'm sorry, Izzy, I have to go help look for her. Izzy sighed, but nodded. She won't go far, Eddie. She will never leave Brandon. Watched him head out the door even as she spoke, wondered what the heck had happened. How did he even know she wasn't in the suite? He'd not gotten up and looked, and why did they need to watch Piper? She didn't understand. The woman might be upset at seeing Bradley, frowned to herself. She thought he had been going to marry that girl, but Bradley had told her the girl was his sister. That. Izzy's eyes widened as she realized Piper was likely Bradley's mate. The man had said he loved her. Izzy's frown deepened. Piper had said he'd never loved he. There was always another woman. If wolves mated for life, why would Bradley be with someone else? Oh, she was very confused, didn't understand anything. Eddie had just told her that those two had stuff to work out, that it might take a while. Sighed, something else was definitely going on. Perhaps she needed to talk with Piper. The woman had helped her with Eddie. Maybe it was time to help her with Bradley, if she could. Had no idea if she could. Where would Piper go? Why would she just up and leave Brandon alone? Got off her bed and pulled PJs on, checked on the boy. He was settled and sleeping in his bed, completely unaware his mother had left the room. Piper knew that she and Eddie were here in the suite, likely thought the boy was safe with them. Frowned and walked into Piper's room, saw her phone on the bedside table. Picked it up and popped the password in 25663 and found a message from Bradley himself. Piper, please let me see you tonight. The moon sets at 20:55. There was no reply from Piper. Izzy looked at the time. It was 20:50 now. Piper didn't want to see him when the moon set. Why, if he was her mate, would she run away from him? Put the phone down. Eddie had just explained to her that the full moon was when you could claim your mate. Piper was actively avoiding it. Bit her lip. It wasn't really like Piper to run away. Though where Bradley was concerned. She had back then, and in Portland, had gone away for the long weekend suddenly, then worked from home to avoid him. Though coming here had not been to run away from Bradley, no, this was about getting away from Timothy Avery. But was still actively avoiding Bradley. That man had done something to hurt Piper. Likely had ruined what they were supposed to be. Piper had told her he'd never loved her, never would. In fact, she'd heard the pain in Piper's voice and actually offered to come home. Asked her if she was all right, and Piper had admitted no, she wasn't. Something was very wrong. She needed to know what had actually happened. Izzy did know that Piper was the one to leave. Their joke about Piper appearing in Portland fully grown, sighed again and wondered if she could get Piper to tell her what had happened. Eddie knew, but she doubted he was going to tell her. Had said it was not his place. She had a gut feeling that they all knew, and that's why they were all here, to try and bring her back. Izzy didn't know if Piper would go back. She'd obviously left for a good reason, and she had stayed away at that. Never once gone back, never once even mentioned where she'd come from, or even the state of Montana for that matter. Not to Izzy's recollection. Izzy had left her own family, but she went back for important occasions like weddings, anniversaries, Christmases, and big birthdays. Might have left, but was still connected to her family. Piper, on the other hand, had left everyone and everything and had never gone back, lived away from all she'd grown up with. It was very confusing. Likely confusing because she was human, so she didn't understand all that went on in their world, likely had a lot to learn and understand, wondered how long it would take to really understand their world. Could she? Would she fit in, or would she feel like an outsider? She didn't know. Chapter 47. Piper POV. Piper stood staring at the text message, pain touching nearly every part of her. She knew it would not matter, that there was a full moon tonight. Put her phone on and walked over to the window to stare down at the street. She had put herself before him or been near him many times on a night of the full moon over the years inside that pack. Not once had he so much as even looked in her direction. He'd not scented her for 3 whole years. Tonight's full moon would make no difference to the situation. Harper was already gone. The moment she'd read that text message, her wolf had fled to the back of Piper's mind. They knew their bond was still intact, but once again they also knew it would make no difference to them at all. It would change nothing, only cause them more pain when they saw him and knew he could not scent them. She closed her eyes. It was clear to her from Harper's disappearance that she did not want to come face to face with him tonight. Piper herself did not want to have to see once more that there was no recognition either, for that matter. There was no point. It was likely to only cause her just as much pain as her wolf, for that matter. Turned her eyes to the clock, 20:30. She was not going to make Harper suffer, put her through all that once again. Couldn't. Her wolf was struggling now, just knowing they still had a mate that could not claim them, not without actually being able to scent her, which even he himself had admitting to not being able to do. Sighed heavily, was not going to even answer that text message. Moved from her room to the living area. She'd let Eddie in when he knocked on the door half an hour ago. She just stepped aside, not really saying much. She knew he needed to see Izzy. He and Izzy were currently in her room talking behind closed doors. She had no idea if he was listening for her or not. It was likely that he was just here to be with Izzy. He would be able to actually send her in a few short minutes. Sighed softly. Brandon would be safe in here with the two of them. If she went out for a little bit. Or the whole night. As long as Eddie was busy with Izzy, he wouldn't be checking on her either, and Piper was pretty certain the two of them wouldn't be able to keep their hands off of each other tonight. She stood wondering just what she should do, already knew that coming face to face with Bradley was not on the cards for her or Harper. They just couldn't do it. Had suffered that too many times to want to do it again. Though how she was going to do this every month for the foreseeable future, she had no idea. It had hurt every single time. They knew today would be no different, not even with him claiming to know. They were his mate. He could claim that all he liked. He could not scent her, so they both knew his wolf would never claim them without that. She turned her eyes to Izzy's room as she picked up a soft moan coming from their room. It was now or never. She slipped quietly from the room, making sure the door barely clicked closed. Didn't want Eddie's hearing to pick up on anything at all. Checked the corridor in both ways. No sign of Cooper or Harrison. Likely with Eddie inside her hotel room, Bradley thought there was no need to guard the hallway and be on the lookout for her trying to leave. That's why he was unconcerned about Eddie being in her room. The man was on duty. Well, he had been till now. Had the full moon and a mate to claim, that would always outweigh his duty. Walked to the elevator and pressed the button. Didn't even really know where she was going to go. Likely just walk around all night on her own. Thankfully, she had changed into jeans and a t-shirt after her shower. She'd known at some point Eddie would be coming for Izzy, and had not wanted to be walking around the hotel room in her pajamas while he was there. Piper walked out of the elevator and headed for the front door of the hotel, her nose wrinkled as she picked up the smell of wolf. Turned her head towards it and saw Cooper standing, while leaning on a wall a little ways away. He was not there to look out for her, she could tell. He was talking on his phone, paying no attention to the people around him. Her hearing picked up his words, "I know Hadley." He sounded a little annoyed. She was curious herself as to why the Pax Beta was all the way down here in the hotel lobby talking to the girl, who was Bradley's little sister. It was odd. Seemed to be having a private conversation away from his alpha. She was not so curious that she was going to stop and listen, not tonight anyway. Continued on her way towards the hotel's front door. She got bumped into by a group of people walking faster than she was. She was not trying to draw Cooper's attention, so she was strolling like she had no care in the world. Stepped aside for them to pass, right at the door, automatically apologized to them, couldn't help herself. It's just what she'd learned to do inside the pack. Even all these years later, it was still ingrained into her to apologize for others not knowing she was there. Just couldn't seem to not do it. Stepped out the door only to hear her name questioningly. Piper. It was Cooper. Although he sounded very uncertain as to if it was her or not, he could not actually see her face from where he was standing, and of course, he couldn't scent her either. Piper did not turn and look back at him. That would be a dead giveaway that it was her. She had noted that Bradley and his entire unit actually looked right at her, could see her, were using their actual eyes to locate and look at her. She was also wearing jeans and a t-shirt, not something any of them had ever seen her do before. It might confuse him. Piper strolled casually out of the hotel, as though his calling of her name meant nothing to her, as though she was not this Piper he was calling out to, and then the minute she was out the door and past the group of people waiting on their ride, all milling about out the front of the hotel, she bolted away down the street as fast as she could, knew that if she was actually out of sight, then he would not be able to track her. Ran away from that hotel. Even Harper appeared to assist with speed to help put distance between her and the thing that would cause them pain, worse than any other night. She did not want to suffer the pain of heartbreak, knowing this time it would hurt way more than before, because now he claimed to know she was his mate. So him having that knowledge and still not recognizing them was simply just too much to bear. Too much to even consider bearing. He had not once stated his wolf wanted to claim them or mark them. No, they just wanted to mate the hell out of them, and that was not enough for her or her wolf for that matter. Last time that had happened, his words had shattered them completely. They did not want that to happen again. It would kill them eventually to have him want them, but to never want to claim them. She would not accept a life like that, and she knew Harper did not want that either. Was lending her wolf speed to help them get away from just that. Her own wolf was itching to flee from her own mate. They could come back when the night was over. It was just one night. They both knew Bradley was going to be mad, but he did not understand the pain they felt, the years of pain they had suffered. Yes, so he'd felt them reject him, but so had she, for that matter. Unlike them, he'd suffered just one night of pain. They had suffered years of it, would not do it again, would not put themselves before him and have him frown down at them and openly shake his head and admit he did not send her. No more would they do that to themselves. He had no idea where she was, and she could run all night in all likelihood, ran without a thought as to where she was going, turned random corners left and right. There was no method to her running, just trying to keep out of sight, and that was all there was to it. Stopped running at some point, and found a place to sit down. It was dark here in the small alleyway, only a light on either end of the alley. She didn't need light, could see fine in the dark. Sank down on the ground and stared emptily at the brick wall across the way from her. She hoped that Brandon would understand. She was not leaving him, just had to get away for this one night was all. Closed her eyes and wrapped her arms around her legs, put her head down on her knees and stayed there. She didn't know where she was, so they would have no hope of knowing where she was either. It was going to be a long night of emotional torment, she knew, but at least it was a clear night, and it was not raining. So didn't have to sit out and be soaking wet all night. Sat there and used her wolf's hearing to make sure she knew if anyone was coming her way. To detect if she was in any kind of danger. Or if they had found her. Didn't seem like it, although while running she had not been listening for anyone behind her. Piper and Harper already knew that they could outrun all of them, including Bradley himself. Was not particularly worried about them catching up to her, and she had not heard anyone calling out her name. It was unlikely that Cooper had followed her. Would have just returned to his phone call when she had not reacted and moved through the humans at a normal pace. They had not run till they were out of his sight line. Nothing suspicious to be seen. Harper had fixed her knee before they'd left the hotel. It was aching a bit right this minute, but not so bad that it bothered her, and at least it hadn't failed her at all in her run. Turned her head to rest her cheek on her knees and just stared blankly down the alleyway. For a long time she just sat there. Lifted her head at the sight of a group of people walking into the alley. Got up herself, did not want any trouble even with humans. It was probably nothing, just a group of people cutting down the alley to get to their destination. But it was probably not the best thing to be seen alone in a darkened alley. It was likely that they were completely harmless. She could hear them laughing and chatting. There were, however, 6 of them, and so she wouldn't risk it. She turned and walked back the way she had come from. Found herself on a street that was well lit at least, turned and walked casually along it. Better to be here, she thought, than in that alley. It really was going to be a long night. She stopped at an unusual scent, turned her head and found a tall, slender woman across the street looking right at her. Sighed internally as she realized it was a vampire. A shiver ran through her. This was just what she needed. Harper's ears flattened back against her head. She did not like the way the woman was looking at them. Not good, she thought, and Harper agreed. It was likely on the lookout for a feed. She turned and moved on. Kept her pace casual as though she was unconcerned about the woman who had been looking at her. But they could still smell the creature. That thing wouldn't be able to smell what she was, which might make it seem that no one would miss her. Did not panic, she'd come across vampires before. Not all of them were bad, could simply be natural curiosity for something she couldn't scent was all. Did not allow fear to overtake her. A vampire would detect fear as easily as she could herself. Though that creature would be more well-tuned to a body's reaction, likely be able to detect even a sheen of sweat. Sighed internally, knew it was following her half a block later, could still smell it. The creature liked that she was walking alone. They knew that they could not run, not even she had the speed to outrun a vampire. Bloody creatures could move damned fast, faster than wolves. She also knew they were damned hard to kill, usually took more than one wolf to take even one of them down. Needed to keep a clear head, don't react to it, and stay calm. Found herself at a crosswalk at a set of traffic lights. Stopped and pressed the button. That woman stepped right up next to her, felt Harper snarl inside her mind. Her wolf instincts were telling her that the situation was not going to be a good one. Harper wanted to let that vampire know what they were, what it would be dealing with. There were, however, no other wolves around, none in this country as far as she was aware. Knowing what she was would surprise this woman, but it would be unlikely to deter her if she thought they would make a good meal. Stepped onto the crosswalk when it went green and strolled across the street. The vampire matched her casual pace, and as they stepped up onto the curb, felt pain sear the side of her jaw. That damned vampire cut her with a fingernail. Harper was on the surface instantly, growling right at her all low and menacingly. Turned her eyes on the creature to see her tasting their blood. She was indeed trying to determine if she was going to be a good feed or not. Registered the surprise in her face as she realized just what they were, had clearly not been expecting to see a werewolf, or taste one for that matter, had likely actually been trying to determine what she was. Well now, you're a long way from home, I imagine. Piper didn't say anything, her accent would give her away instantly. The vampire had an Australian accent, was from here, which meant she likely had a pack of her own close by as well, likely somewhere here in Sydney. All alone, too, I see. There was a smile on her face now. She clearly liked the idea of feeding off of her. Piper had no personal grudge against the vampire, or the woman she would be here in Sydney, that the humans would know her as. But in general, most wolves and vampires did not get along. Sometimes they could, but not all, depended on many things. This could go one of two ways, a fight which she nor Harper had any idea if they could win. They could fight, but had never ever come up against a vampire and had not training in doing so either. Or a calm conversation. was opting for the second option. "Hello, I'm Piper Harper," she introduced herself, hoping this vampire would know her name. These creatures were fashion addicts. It was possible that she might know who she was, and you are. "Hungry," she stated with a smile. "What say we make this quick and easy?" "Let's not," Piper sighed. "How about you and I just walk away from each other?" "You would want to start a war now, would you?" "With who?" The woman turned and looked around. "I see no one with you, smell no one with you." "That doesn't mean I am alone," Piper countered. She was not affiliated at all, but she actually wasn't alone, though she herself knew that there was no help coming for her, couldn't even call for help. Had not brought her phone with her, hadn't because she knew Bradley would only ring it constantly to try and get her to pick up. She'd left it at the hotel because she'd not wanted that, could now see the error of her ways. She had not thought that she would come across any other creatures out here, but now she knew better. Saw that woman's eyes move right back to her neck. No mark was what she was registering, trying to decide if what Piper had said was true. "I think you're alone." Tilted her head, and a half-breed at that. She smiled. "Let's say we play a little game, you run. I'll give you a full minute head start. You might actually get away. You never know." There was full amusement in her voice. "Likely enjoyed the hunt," Piper supposed. "No thank you. I'd rather not. Neither would the alpha wolf that is here to collect me." Heard the woman laugh now. "You just. No alpha would want a half-breed like you." Harper stuck the woman, all claws out, before Piper realized what had even happened. Had not taken kindly to the insult, it seemed. Saw the bloody claw marks across the woman's face, and knew it was too late to run. They were standing on a well-lit street, and shit had just hit the fan. Piper had been violently shoved to the back of her mind, as Harper fully asserted herself to strike that vampire, and Harper was still in full control. It took less than 10 seconds for the fight between her wolf and the vampire to break out, vampire versus wolf. The woman was very fast and very strong, latched onto them and used all her strength and speed to drag them down the street into an alleyway, and then just threw them down it and away from her. It was still Harper who landed on the ground and rolled over several times before being able to get up. When she got up, all her claws were out and a massive snarl ripped right out of her, as all of fight instincts kicked in. She, however, did not move and kept Piper locked away inside the back of her own mind. Wanted the vampire to come to her. Trying to gauge speed and ability, they had no idea how old this creature was, though trying to feed on them out in the open like this likely indicated that she was only young and still impulsive at that. From what they did know of vampires, most would not feed in full view of the public, too risky in outing their own kind, punishable by their own laws. Saw her move, come at Harper, who dodged at the very last second, but whipped her claws out in the woman's direction, sliced through the flesh on her side, heard the hiss of pain, turned to face her, pain searing them as well. They had not been the only one to snap a hand out. The woman had anticipated her dodge and lashed out as well. Those claws had cut deep, and she was already coming back for Harper. Her eyes glowed the palest of blue she'd ever seen, her creature on the surface. They had no idea if they could win, but they were going to try. They had Brandon to think about. Pulled on all they had learned in warrior training. Forced Harper to allow her some control, to assist with the fight, used the small area of the alley to their advantage, their agility training and the fact that this creature would move so fast in such a small area it could go against them. There were parked cars and a couple of large dumpsters here. Felt more pain sear into them as that vampire lashed out at them. She was too fast, and keeping track of her was hard to do. Though it did appear she could not control herself completely, hit the alley wall and cried out in pain. Didn't seem to be able to stop in time, indicative of a young and untrained vampire. A blessing was going to use that to their advantage. Agility was something they were very good at. Used her wolf's full speed to run from one side of the alley to the other, pivot turn at the last second and run back the other, to test the vampire's reflexes and training, only to hear the vampire hit the wall. Took full advantage of this knowledge, slashed her claws into the creature, and shot to the other side of the alley again. It only worked 3 times, before the vampire stopped and snarled at her, had learned already what she was doing and didn't like it. The creature suddenly roared in frustration and anger. She was bleeding in several places, as was Harper. They had traded blow for blow, but all they could do was try to outmaneuver this creature and hopefully damage it enough for it to flee and need to heal. But it was clear the creature was hungry, and she would need to feed to heal herself. That was the difference between them. Harper could heal at will, and was actively doing so, though it was slow going during a battle. The vampire could not. For every drop of blood it lost, it would need to feed to recover it. She watched as the creature lost all control of itself, and was running on pure instinct, and its desperate need to feed to heal itself had taken over everything else. It moved so damned fast that they dodged too late, and it was on them, had its claws buried into both her shoulders as it slammed them up against the wall. This did not stop Harper from slashing at the woman's abdomen, not even when she felt the vampire's fangs sink into their flesh and start to feed off of them. A howl of pain ripped out of her. They were pinned by a creature that was stronger and faster than they were, and it was literally sucking the life out of them. Had to fight with all they had, slashed with both hands, all claws out to gut this creature. She was too young to understand that to feed on a wolf you had to do it from behind, to keep those wolves' claws out of you. Sliced her right open, tore into that creature's abdomen and kept ripping and slicing, could feel blood pouring from her, could feel the creature's strength dwindling. It didn't realize it was dying. Too busy feeding, in a bloodlust to understand it was actually losing the battle. Finally, felt those fangs pull from her neck and saw it stumble backwards, uncertain as to why she couldn't feed, as to what had happened to her. Then she looked down at herself with utter shock at seeing her innards spilling out of her, grabbed at them with her hands as to hold them in and gasped. Harper looked the opportunity to launch herself at the creature, clamp her hands around its head and snap the creature's neck. They slumped down onto the ground on top of the creature as it tailed down, itself lifeless, lay there for a moment exhausted. They had never had to fight like this before, and that thing which was turning gray before their eyes had fed off of them. Goddess only knew how much blood they had lost, but they had already been injured and now they were tired. Harper receded all the way and Piper was left lying on the bloody mess of a creature. Pushed herself up and off the vampire, crawled away to the side of the alleyway and leaned on the wall. She was too tired and too injured to go anywhere. If that thing's people came for it, she'd never survive it. Had barely survived this one. And likely only because it was young and untrained. Probably only freshly turned. The thing's lack of control said it all. It had not grown up as a vampire. They had rules, just like wolves did. Piper closed her eyes. She was done and she knew it. Had lost too much blood to get up and try to move on down the alleyway for help. Could feel the darkness closing in around her. "I'm sorry, Brandon," she murmured as darkness claimed her. Chapter 48. Bradley POV. Bradley was staring at his phone. He had sent that text message to Piper, in the small hope that she would actually agree to see him. He knew she'd been in his pack for years, and he'd not sent it her. It would never have been a nice feeling, but he wanted her to know that he wanted to try, that so did his wolf. They wanted to come face to face with her and try to send her out. Wondered if she'd allow him to remove that pendant and see if that was all it would take, but at the same time did not want to either. What if he was as affected by her not wearing it as any other male out there? What if he'd tried to hurt her if she wasn't wearing it? Sighed he needed bloody answers. He and Benson had no recollection of Piper being near them at all. All memories of her were gone from him, and all because wolves relied on their sense of smell to recall who other wolves were. It was just a natural thing for them. Not something they ever focused on doing was their nature. Harry was in his room with the door closed. He'd picked up the phone call and practically purred down the line at his mate, excused himself and retired to his room. Bradley had felt jealous of the man. Their bond was so strong, even his wolf could be heard purring as he'd closed the door. All for his mate. Been together as a couple for 19 years, mated for 16 of those years and still couldn't keep their hands off of each other. Cooper had excused himself about 10 minutes ago after receiving a text message. He had looked right at Brad and, for the first time ever, actually looked a little uncomfortable, as though he didn't want Brad to know who he was talking to. then had stood up and excused himself, stated he needed to call home on a private matter, and actually left the suite altogether. From Brad's hearing, he'd left the entire floor as well. Eddie, of course, was with Izzy, no real surprise there. So it was just Brad prowling around inside his room, and he had retired to his room and closed the door to text Piper. Now he was hoping that she would get back to him. He knew she was in her room, had asked Eddie as much a minute after he'd sent that text, and he'd gotten back a yes, in her room pacing around. Brandon is asleep already. That did not really surprise him, though Piper had gone back to her suite this morning and crashed out after this morning's run, as had he for that matter. Brandon had not. He'd hung out with Izzy and Eddie all morning playing games on the PS5 and not napped at all. The boy had a long day and an emotionally draining afternoon. He was just 7 and was likely both physically and emotionally drained. Hearing that she was pacing around inside of her room could only mean that she had gotten his text and read it. That she was likely stressing about it, either didn't know what to do about it or how to respond to it. There was also the chance that she was not going to do anything about it at all. Bradley and Benson at least wanted to try and smell her. Perhaps just knowing what she was to them would help that. He had no idea if that would count or not. Had emailed Timothy about the Whitlock way of allowing their mate to scent them, seeing that it was a full moon. But the man had yet to reply to him. He hated that time difference right now. It was the middle of the night over there in Canada, barely 3 a.m. in the ice moon pack. Timothy was unlikely to get his email for several more hours. At least 3. Perhaps even 4 if he headed off and went right to training first thing in the morning. Which is what Bradley would normally do. It's what most wolves normally did. He never really strolled into his office inside the pack until 8 a.m. and would get to his office in Helen at about 10, so it could be a long wait. Didn't want to call and wake the man at this point. If Piper was not going to allow him to actually come face to face with her, there was no need. However, if he could convince her, he'd put a call into Timothy right away and would do it in front of Piper so she could hear the way it was done and see if she was up for it. He honestly didn't know if she would be. Likely still want more time, need it. Sighed as the moon was about to set. She was not going to answer him, not going to text him back anything at all. He'd sent that text a long time ago now. His gut was telling him she was not ready. It was completely possible that she had put herself right before him every single time there was a full moon and been completely crushed by his lack of recognition. It was highly likely that she was down there in her room, right this minute, not wanting to put herself through that all over again, and he honestly couldn't blame her for it. It would have been bloody painful each and every time. This full moon was going to have to pass, and he was going to have to try again on the next one. Didn't like it, but had no choice in it. She wasn't ready to deal with him. Wasn't ready to accept them yet. Though had not uttered a new rejection, he had some hope that she was considering it. Brad, Cooper mind-linked him. LS Piper still in her room? As far as I am aware, why? He returned with a frown. I don't know. Saw a woman leave. I couldn't tell, but sounded confused. That got Bradley's attention. Couldn't tell, he prompted. Back of her only, but I don't know. I called out, didn't respond. It might not be her. Wait, he informed his beta and mind-linked to Eddie. The man was bloody busy, Edward. He snarled down the line. If the man was busy with his mate, then he was not listening for Piper. Is Piper still there? There was a short pause. He knew the man was now trying to detect her inside the suite. Shit, no. I'm sorry, Brad. Get up, he roared at the man. She left the damned building. You had one bloody job, Edward. He severed the link and reconnected to Cooper. It was her Cooper. I'm on it already, but I can't track what I can't send or see. Which meant to Brad that she had gotten away from his beta. He'd actually lost sight of her. How the hell did you track something with no scent, in a city this size? Harry, Edward, let Piper leave, she's gone. He snarled as he stepped out of his room and headed for the door. Idiot. Harry muttered as he came out of his room pulling his shoes on. Izzy bloody distracted him. You can't blame him for that, Brad, with the full moon on us and all. I'm aware, it's a bloody full moon, Harry, and he was more so than any other one that had passed in his lifetime. Cooper, any luck? He asked his beta. Tracking the sound of running footsteps, but she's fast, Boss Harper, not Piper, I think. Just bloody great, he thought. He'd seen Harper at 20 km an hour. That wolf could run like the bloody wind and for a long bloody time. Where are you? I don't know. Tracking my phone might be the best option. I need quiet, he replied. Brad understood that comment and cut the link, so his beta could better focus. He could not listen to Brad down the mind link and listen for the sound of running footsteps at the same time. This was a nightmare. Though he had not said anything about Brandon, so presumably he was still up in the suite, sighed it was possible she was just out for a night run under the full moon. Wolves did like to run under the full moon, but his gut was telling him that this was not that. She had been in her room, till he'd texted her. He'd scared her off, and he knew it. He should have just waited, it was too soon. She'd only known about him, and their bond still being intact for a single day. He was an idiot. He should have tried to get to know her first, let this moon pass, but he just couldn't. He had been looking for her for a very long time, wanted his mate. Wanted to see if he could send her out now that he knew who she was to him. Chastised himself for being too impatient. He was as bad as Eddie was, he now realized. Unable to bloody help himself, it seemed he just had to push to get what he wanted, just like Eddie had with Izzy. Got a very apologetic look from his gamma when he caught up with them in the lobby. Sorry, Alpha. I did check on her like 15 minutes ago. It's fine, Eddie. Brad acknowledged him. He couldn't blame the man. I'm the one who scared her off. What? How? How'd you even know she was gone? Eddie asked him. Cooper was in the lobby, thought that he saw her. He wasn't sure, so I asked you. All right, how'd you scare her off? Bradley looked right at him, could see the concern in his gamma now. The man was worried about her. I texted her. To let me see her, sighed, it's the full moon. Oh, I don't think she's ready for that yet, Brad. The man was now frowning. Clearly not, he nodded, now she's running away. I don't think so, Brandon's still upstairs. Maybe just freaked out over it. She'll come back. Where's Cooper? Harry interrupted them. They'd passed through the lobby and were now outside on the footpath looking for any signs of the man. Tracking her as best he can. Don't mind link to him. He can't send her. Is actually tracking the sound of running footfall. He needs to focus completely. Said to track his phone. On it. Harry nodded. On the bright side, they could do that in real time nowadays. Eddie, go get the car, he tossed the keys at him. You'll be driving. Eddie was gone. He turned and looked at Harry's phone. Loved the real-time app. Created by some alpha wolf to keep track of his mate who was always defiant and going wherever she pleased whenever she wanted, without telling him. Thanked the goddess that alphas were constantly paranoid about their mates being snatched away from them by a rival. He frowned down at the line that was still moving. It was not even close to being straight. He sighed because he was right. This was not just some night run. She's smart, knows if we can't see her, we can't track her. It looked like she was just turning random corners and quickly so, likely trying to stay out of sight. Cooper was backtracking a bit on himself, from what he could tell, her constant changing of direction confusing him, but the man was still on the move it seemed. It's pretty busy out tonight, Harry commented. Only here, likely not there. Their car pulled up and they got in, to go track Cooper. It took 30 minutes to do so. Couldn't exactly take their car down every road that he ran down. Some of them were one way. They had tried to use the GPS to his location, but because he was on the move, didn't really work with no set location. When they did catch up to him, he was standing in the middle of the street pavement, his eyes closed and his head tilted slightly to the right. They pulled up right next to him. It was a quiet street, double-parked the car. Cooper? Brad asked him. His eyes opened, lost her. I think she stopped running. He sighed, Harper is too fast, and we all know she can run forever. Is she close? Think so, he nodded, though I never actually say her, not once. And she is running randomly, could be blocks away for all I know. I suggest we search on foot, calmly, so as not to alert her. She'll scent us quickly, if she is alert for us coming after her, Brad sighed. Yes. Cooper nodded, but if we're all listening for running footfall, we'll get her pinned down. Who's with Brandon? He asked as he looked in the car and realized the whole unit was here. Izzy. Bradley sighed and got out of the car. I need you all out here. He didn't think that even Piper would know where she was at the moment. just ran at full wolf speed out in the open for all to see, turned corner after corner. They were a good 10 km for the actual hotel. Guess her knee is better, Cooper muttered. As Eddie actually parked the car. They split into two groups, he and Cooper, Eddie and Harry. If you feel anything, Eddie, I want to know, no matter how slight. He stared right at the man pointedly. The man had told him nothing for years, and granted he had his reasons not to, but no longer would Bradley stand for that. Watched his gamma just nod before walking away with Harry. Turned and looked up the street in the other direction. I pushed her co-op. To see me. Too soon for her, in other words, the man commented, but said nothing else. His eyes were open, shut his sense of smell down, and Benson was alert for the sound of running footfall. He did not like this, not being able to scent her. Was this how it was always going to be? Even inside the pack, presuming he could get her there. Never knowing where she was, if she was all right at any given point in time, I'm going to have to load Jack my own mate, he muttered after 10 minutes of searching and getting nothing. Not once you mark her, Brad. Coop commented, you'll be able to feel her through your bond then. Until then. Brad suddenly stopped and touched his jaw as it zinged him, frowned. What is it? Cooper asked. I don't know, he shook his head, it's gone. Piper. Likely. Brad nodded, felt like I'd nicked myself shaving. Just brief. That could help with finding her. Maybe, I might be able to feel her physical pain, but that doesn't mean I will be able to track her with it. And I don't want her to be injured, and he didn't. There was no guarantee that her being injured meant he could feel a pull towards her, and if that was the case, they still couldn't scent her, so she'd be injured and he'd not be able to find her, regardless of the pain he felt. His head whipped around and a snarl ripped right out of him, all Benson, as pain shot through the pair of them. Brad? He was horrified at the feeling of his arm coming under vice-like pressure, and then felt multiple aches all over his body. She's in a fight somewhere. Find the sound of the fight, he snapped out, closing his own eyes, trying to hear it with all of Benson's alpha hearing. It was more sensitive than others. Eddie. Alpha, I'm getting anger, no. Fury and rage. It was one. Where? She's in a fight? I don't know, to my right. Go. Bradley snapped, though it was likely the man was already on the move. He got nothing but more pain, gasped out loud when pain started to sear down his body in more places than. Brad? Feels like claws. Otherworldly? They were already heading back the way they came, to where they had last seen Eddie, but the man had said to the right of him, but he didn't exactly know where his gamma was right that minute. Use that tether to him. He was a fair way away and moving fast, though coming back this way towards them. He could feel every damned blow she was taking. It was a serious fight, kept moving, stopped on every corner to listen, finally picked it up 3 blocks after the first pain had hit him. I got it. He muttered and shot off the mark in the direction he could hear the fight. They were likely still a few blocks away though. Heard the sound of a massive angry roar. It was high-pitched and hurt his ears. It was no wolf, so not Piper or Harper. Vampire, Brad. Cooper snarled. Bradley knew he was right. Not only did he detect it in that high-pitched noise they made, which was still hurting his ears, he could now smell it in the area as well. They breathed in deep to see how many. Only one scent he could detect, thankfully. But could Piper and Harper handle one? He had no idea. Not many could handle a vampire one-on-one. They were super fast and strong, and that thing had sounded furious. Likely she had injured it, and it had not taken kindly to it. Hit the ground, actually stumbled and fell down as pain ripped into his neck. Fear struck him to the core as he realized it was feeding on her. Go. He roared she was losing the battle. Felt Benson surge forward completely, pushed right past that pain of her life being drained away from her, and forced them up off the ground. With all his wolf senses activated as Benson took complete control, they were suddenly hit with the smell of blood, so much blood both vampire and wolf. A massive snarl ripped out of him, and they were gone. Benson shot past Cooper as her sent him hit. They could smell her blood, to be precise, and along with it was the scent he'd never been able to smell. It was so very sweet, his nose filled with the smell of apricot nectar, honey and orange blossoms, so very soft and delicate. They hit the laneway and Benson shot round the corner into it. There was so much blood, it was all over the place. A tall female body lay on the ground about a quarter of the way down the alley. She was dead, and he could already see that the body was turning gray and starting to decay. There would be no evidence within 5 to 10 minutes. That body would slowly disintegrate to nothing but ash. They could see and smell Piper's blood on that foul creature's mouth, from where it had fed on their mate. He was furious about that would have ripped its head clean off if it had still been alive for hurting her. Its lifeless eyes were staring down the alley at him. Piper or Harper had managed to kill it. It was gutted and the thing's neck had been snapped, but had they been too late? Found her unconscious body slumped over on her side by the wall of the alley. She had bloodied wounds to both her shoulders, and fang marks in her neck where that foul creature had fed on her. Slash marks to her torso and both her arms, had bruises on both arms below the sleeves of her t-shirt, and that t-shirt was pretty much torn to shreds. Bradley knelt down in front of her. Benson had receded, whined in pain at the sight of his mate so very badly injured and unconscious. He touched her face gently. "Piper." Her name came out as a bare whisper. It pained him just as much as his wolf to see her like this. He picked up her heart still beating, and she was breathing, shallow but still there. Still alive, but so badly injured, and there was no pack nearby to take her to for medical treatment. He couldn't take her to a human hospital, no blood would match hers, and there would be a million questions he'd not be able to explain. Fuck. It was Cooper. He'd finally caught up just a few seconds behind Bradley. "Get the car," he heard his beta Roa. Knew on some level he was yelling at Eddie or Harry. Didn't care to look to see who. "I can smell her co-op." Cooper was next to him, reached out and touched her neck. "This is not good, Bradley." "I know, we need to move her. We need to get her back in the pack." "She'd not going to like it though." "You said you can smell her? You mean to send her as your mate?" Cooper was looking right at him. "Yes," he nodded. "The only difference between now and all those other times were her injuries. Likely it's her blood, probably have to send her blood to realize she's my mate." "Interesting. Could be how the Whitlocks do that." Cooper nodded. Brad took his shirt off. "Help me change her to something half-decent." They stripped her ruined t-shirt off of her and Brad put his over her, picked her up, medkit. Cooper sighed and shook his head. "Still in her car, not ours. We can't very well walk her into the hotel like this," Brad muttered. She was not just covered in her blood, but that vampire's as well. His eyes moved to the creature decaying on the ground. "How long do you think we have before others turn up?" "I don't know. That depends on how close to the pack we are, though I don't feel as though we're in someone's pack territory. But we should hightail it out of here fast." Watched him looking the creature over. "I'm guessing it was young. Didn't attack from behind, so not trained well. We'll head right for the airport." Bradley stated he was not interested in doing battle with vampires. "Got to get that thing's blood off her first. They'll track the scent right to us otherwise. And when they find this alley, that's what they will do." "Right." Finally, the car pulled up. Coop opened the door and they got in. "Roll up the windows tight," he ordered. They would keep the scent from escaping as best they could. "Sweet goddess. Brandon's going to lose it, Brad." He heard Eddie's concern. "Our suite for cleaning and patching up. Then out of this country before we're outnumbered, and we will be." Cooper was already on the phone, calling the pilot. He saw, "Harry, you'll pack our suite and fast, Eddie." "I got it. Izzy and Brandon plus all their stuff, Alpha," he stated before Brad could even get it out. "What do I tell Brandon?" "I don't know." He shook his head, and he didn't know he needed more thought on that. He saw Harry take Eddie's phone and heard him call Izzy while Eddie was driving. He explained the issue to her as best he could. Eddie told her to pack everything and not to wake Brandon at this point. That they had to leave ASAP due to circumstances, not to argue. Chapter 49. Bradley POV. The minute the car was parked, Cooper was out the door and going for the med kit. Brad got out and took Piper up the stairs. It was the only way to get her upstairs without any others seeing. Eddie and Harry were in front of him, making sure the doors to other floors in the stairwell were closed and kept that way on their way up. Eddie peeled off on the 6th floor to head for Piper's suite and help Izzy to finish packing and get both of them downstairs and out of the hotel. Izzy had sounded horrified over the phone, didn't seem to really understand, but had agreed to pack what she could. Said she wouldn't wake Brandon at this point. Agreed that he needed to be kept calm. Brad did not want Aspen bursting out of him here in the hotel, though he was going to have to be told at some point. Didn't even know if the boy knew vampires were real. Didn't know what he thought at all about otherworldly creatures. Likely the best person to explain this to him was going to be Izzy. Brandon trusted her completely, and though she, too, didn't understand everything yet, the woman had simply accepted Eddie being a werewolf, likely helped that she already knew too and could see they were not monsters. So hopefully she would understand and be able to explain. Maybe if Eddie was there that too would help. Got to his suite and took Piper right to the bathroom, stripped off the shirt. She wasn't going to like the fact that they had tended to her and stripped her naked to do so, but was going to have to deal with it. They didn't have much choice though. Had to get to her wounds and to wash that vampire's blood off of her as well. Cooper was already running water and dousing the hotel towel so she could be washed down, dumped them on the floor next to Brad, then opened the med kit and started pulling out combined dressings and tape, used gauze to wipe one wound at a time. She needed a few staples to her arms inside. Put pressure over the bite wound to actually make it stop bleeding. It had mostly stopped but was still oozing slowly. Bard had been putting pressure on it himself the whole drive back to the hotel. Then it too was washed and dressed. The med kit was filled with prem-up or adhesive dressings of all shapes and sizes, and once every wound was cleaned and the edges realigned and pressed back together, dressings were applied. Then they set about actually completely washing her down. Stripped her shoes, socks and jeans off, rinsed out her hair and put one of Brad's clean dress shirts on her, made sure it was a long-sleeved one so as to hide the various wounds from Brandon's eyes until everything could be explained to him. Coop bagged all the bloody clothing while Brad put Piper on the bed, stripped out of his blood-stained clothes, and then tossed them at Cooper to be bagged as well. Then he showered quickly to get rid of any scent of that vampire's blood on him transferred from Piper's body to his as he'd carried her. Stood looking at her. She'd not so much as even flinched while she'd been attended to. Unconscious still, it was likely that she had lost a lot of blood. They didn't pack blood, and it was unlikely that West would have any on his plane either. Transfusions were always done inside pack hospitals, and the closest one was 24 hours away, would have to land and then be driven to the closed Allied pack. Though it was possible that West could have his doctor waiting at the airport. Would have to call him once they were in the air. Bradley could only hope that she'd be all right. Doubted Cooper had the medical training for such a thing anyway. Maybe he should have the man do that. Even if they didn't carry blood, a live transfusion could be done, if the man knew how and they had the gear to do it. Ready, Harry called out. Let's go then, Brad stated and picked Piper up once more. She still didn't flinch, though he could hear her heart beating still and her breathing was better. Looked at Cooper as they headed out the door. He was their medic. She'll likely be out a while, depending on how much blood she lost, was all he said. Where's Eddie? He asked as he got in the car. On his way, he's got Brandon. Didn't wake the boy, not properly anyway. Probably for the best. Brad nodded. Harry, go with Eddie. You drive so he can stay with the boy. If he wakes up completely, Izzy is to tell him we're headed home. That Piper is in our car, he can see her on the plane. Right. The minute Cooper was in the car, they were gone. He was looking for signs of vampires as they drove out of the underground car park, saw nothing on the street, but that did not mean shit wasn't about to get real ugly. He kept his eyes peeled, knew Brandon would be all right. There was no scent on that car at all. It was why he'd kept them separated. Bradley also knew Eddie and Harry would protect both Izzy and Brandon with all they had if something did go down. Also knew Harry would not tail them directly behind, would travel further back and not look like the two vehicles were traveling together, in case he and Cooper were set upon. Also knew that Harry would drive on past, would not stop his car to help till they were well past. Likely get out and double back on foot, have Izzy drive Brandon away to the airport and the waiting jet to keep them both safe. It was not a long trip, thankfully, and there was only light traffic, being that it was near 2,300 on a Sunday night, a good thing. Only 15 minutes. Both cars pulled up at the terminal and the pilot was waiting for them. I'll return the cars with Harry. Cooper stated as he opened the door to let Brad out and then hauled the luggage out. He looked over at Izzy and Eddie getting out. Her eyes were on him. Well, on Piper, she was still only dressed in one of his shirts, but she was tiny compared to him, so it was long enough to be like a dress on he. Unconscious still, he told Izzy as she came over. What happened to her? His eyes moved to Brandon. The boy was restless as Eddie carried him. Let's get them both settled, Izzy. Then you can get a full account of details. Is she going to be all right? I hope so, he sighed. Because he had no idea if she would survive it or not. Thankfully, West had a bedroom on his plane, so he could lay her down comfortably to help the healing process. Walked right onto the jet and to that bedroom, lay her down in the bed. Eddie put Brandon right next to her, and he watched as the boy rolled over and curled right into her like he knew she was there. Wondered if he could scent his own mother. It certainly did seem that way. Did you see anything, Eddie? No, all clear at this point. But they will scent wolves when they find that alleyway. I know, that's why we are leaving. We need to be wheels up Brad, like now. So they can't track the flight. I know, soon as Coop and Harry are back, we're gone. It took another 20 minutes for them to come back. Bradley was pacing around inside the plane. Eddie was prowling around just outside the plane on the tarmac. They did not need vampires tracking them back to their pack and looking to seek revenge. He had no idea who had started the fight, though he doubted very much it would have been Piper. She would not risk herself, not with Brandon to look after, and that first nick he'd felt, to his jaw, likely was the vampire. It wouldn't have known what she was, unable to scent her. That nick was to taste her blood and see what she was, determine if she was drinkable. He was not happy about that thought. Bradley was pretty darn certain there were no wolves here in Australia, or at least not that he knew of. But other creatures, who knew what else lived here? Vampires could blend in anywhere in the world, and, likely out here, didn't see many otherworldly creatures that would be able to take them on, so a safe haven. They were wheels up 15 minutes later after getting runway clearance, and still no sign of vampires that they could see or detect. Perhaps that creature was out on its own a long way from its pack, or perhaps, like Piper, it was always on its own. He sat in a chair and stared out the window. This was not good. He was pretty certain from the injuries that it was a fight not to be fed on only. He did not think that the vampire was trying to turn Piper, likely only killing her, but that didn't mean he shouldn't worry about that bite. It was on the right side of her neck, at least away from where he would mark her. Bradley was tempted to get up and go in there and claim the woman even though she was unconscious. He had no idea when she would wake up, or if he'd be able to continue to scent her as he could now, once the full moon was over. Though usually once scented it did remain, he was hoping that now he had scented the woman, he would always be able to. Eddie was sitting with Izzy. She was leaned into him and looked very comfortable with him, though she also looked very worried at the same time. He knew Eddie would be able to feel her worry, though not be able to use his gamma's charm on her to ease her worry. Perhaps the man's presence was enough. Izzy actually looked quite comfortable around the lot of them, had just accepted what they all were. Though he was pretty certain that was Piper's doing. That she had likely been talking to Izzy since she'd met Eddie and he'd not been able to charm her. Piper would have known what that meant, and after Izzy's sister's wedding, Piper would have been certain she was Eddie's mate. Piper had helped Eddie on more than one occasion now. Regardless of her own situation and her thoughts on wolves, she'd helped to assimilate Izzy into their world, her old world, and in such a way that the woman had simply just accepted it. Perhaps, living with humans all this time, she just knew how to explain it to them, without scaring them. He stood and walked to the bedroom, stepped inside and closed the door, sank down on the bed next to her, sighed heavily as he looked at her, and then Brandon, his family, who didn't have anything to do with him. He hated that thought. The pair of them out there all alone. Turned his eyes back to Piper. Her life, it seemed, was never easy when around wolves, had a terrible upbringing inside his pack after the age of 10. Neither his father, nor he when he'd taken over had done anything to help her. Had been living a peaceful human life outside of the pack away from wolves, in the human world, and then once wolves appeared in her life yet again, became terrible once more. He brushed some of her hair from her face and just looked down at her. Seems she had a good reason to hate her own kind. To live away from them, he hoped he could change that for her, wanted to. Bradley's eyes moved to his son, 7 years old and no life at all inside a pack, no good experience with wolves himself. A rogue status like his mother, though the boy did not smell to him like a rogue, likely was going to be just like his mother. Had the same coloring, the hair, the same persona. But he'd seen just how happy the boy was with her. In all those photos. Hoped he could be that happy inside the pack too. Only when Brandon actually opened his eyes did he even resemble him at all, though he had seen himself in the boy when he smiled all big, like he had on the treadmill. The boy's smile was more him than Piper. Brad had not yet really gotten to know Brandon, not gotten to spend any real time with him. He was attached to his mother, and likely whatever she wanted he was going to want as well. He was so stubborn, just like her, the way he'd turned his eyes on him accusatory said it all. He was going to be a handful and always on his mother's side. Bonding with Brandon was necessary, though he was very proud of his son for being so protective that one accusation at lunch had said it all. Not only was he ticked off, but so was his wolf about him, not loving their mother. Wondered just how hard it was going to be to bond with both of them. He had certainly gotten all his mannerisms from Piper and Harper, though from what Alpha Timothy had said, Aspen was recent to the boy, but wolves were born with quite a bit of knowledge, including the mate bond. That was likely why he had looked at Bradley the way he had done. Closed his eyes and relaxed as he sat there on the bed next to them, just breathed in her scent. So sweet and delicate, she smelled amazing. Opened his eyes and looked down at her again. Smiled to himself, then just leaned right down to her ear and growled softly to her, both he and Benson together, mine, claiming her for themselves. Kissed her temple softly, and then sat back up to keep watch over her. Chapter 50. Bradley POV. His eyes opened. He knew he'd fallen asleep, due to the fact that he had no idea what had actually woken him. He was just suddenly alert. Moved his eyes towards Piper, still unconscious. Her scent had lulled him into sleep, couldn't help but be happy about that. He could still actually smell her. Tuned his wolf's hearing to her heart rate was slow and steady, seemed a bit stronger than before. A good thing. Moved his eyes to Brandon, only to find the boy lying there with a hand curled around his mother's arm, but his brilliant blue-green eyes looking right up at him. He smiled gently at the boy. Alpha. Brad's eyes moved to the doorway. It was Cooper. He was standing there leaning on the door smiling at him, likely what had woken him, his beta calling him from sleep. We're about to land in Hawaii. All right, he nodded to Cooper. He had not intended to fall asleep next to her, but it seemed he had, and had slept the entire flight, settled completely by her scent. Saw Cooper step back and close the door. Where are we? Brandon asked him. On a private jet, Brandon. We had to leave in a hurry, he answered the boy honestly. Why? Bradley's eyes moved back to Piper. Her wounds were all covered at this point. Sighed, he had no idea if the boy had any knowledge of otherworldly creatures. Would you come sit here? He held his hands out for the boy to come to him. Watched him just frown. Didn't seem exactly comfortable with the idea. He could see it. Then, after a solid minute, he got up and stepped over Piper and allowed Bradley to settle him in his lap. It was the first time he'd gotten to hold his own son. He could even feel how happy Benson was with how the boy and his wolf came to them. They could form a bond. His wolf knew it. Your mom, she got in a fight last night. Watched as his eyes went really wide as he sat there and stared up at Bradley when. How did he explain that she'd up and left all of them, including him? Couldn't say it like that, and he knew it. She went for a run, came across a vampire. Felt tension in the boy right away, and his eyes shot to his mother. She's all right. Though lots of wounds, it took us a while to find her. She didn't tell anyone she was going out. Likes to run, he heard Brandon stated softly, turned his eyes back to Bradley. Will she wake up? Yes, but I don't know when, he told him and hoped he was right. Likely she's not going to be happy waking up in an unknown place. Where are we going? Home. That got Brandon's attention. Home. My home. Bradley clarified for him she needs a proper wolf in hospital, not a human one. Watched as the boy frowned for a long time, He felt the plane start to descend for landing. Brandon, you can say anything or ask anything you want of me. If you or Aspen have questions, just ask. I will answer you. He tried to reassure the boy. They were on the ground before the boy spoke, Mum said. She'd never go back. His eyes looked up at Bradley, and he could see real worry in them. I understand that. I'm not sure what she told you, but I will make sure things are different for her. Can I ask you something? He nodded. Can you smell her? Aspen, I mean, that she is a wolf. Yes, why? He asked, confused. Because no one else can. I couldn't until last night when I found her, he admitted to the boy. Saw him tilt his head and frown, then look down at his mother for a long time. It was Aspen that turned and looked back at him. Mate, he asked. Bradley blinked as the boy's wolf spoke directly to him. This was the first time. Benson was up and all ears himself, watching their son full of curiosity. Yes. Bradley nodded. I didn't know all this time, Aspen, till now. I only scented her. When I smelled her blood. Bradley knew the boy's wolf had likely been trying to make sense of everything since they'd met him. What did she tell you? Bond broken, one-sided. It was, Bradley nodded sadly. I had no idea for a very long time. Causes pain. Bradley sighed, a lot of pain for her, Aspen. I want to fix this, need to fix this. I am trying to. I have laid claim to her, though. His eyes moved to her. She doesn't know this, was unconscious, still is. She won't want to be there. It was Brandon now. Turned and looked right at him. I know. We've still got a way to go. Hopefully she'll wake up before we get there and understand why I did this. A part of her will, but another part will likely be upset and angry. But I need her to see a wolfen doctor, run his hand through the boy's hair. If you're okay with this, it might help her. Watched as the boy nodded slowly, seemed to understand. Brad. It was Cooper back in the doorway, looked from him to the boy on his lap. The corner of his mouth quirked up. We can disembark and stretch our legs. All right. I'll stay with Piper. Brandon? Cooper asked. Saw the boy turn and look at Cooper. Do you want to come and get something to eat? You must be hungry. Saw him turn and look at his mother, then just shake his head no, then just leaned on him while he watched his mother. Brad slid his hand up the boy's back and patted him gently, saw Cooper smile right at him. Brad couldn't help but smile himself. Coop, bring him something back. Izzy will know what he likes. All right, we'll be on the ground around an hour and a half. Thank you, Cooper. Brad nodded to him. Then he just sat there and let his son lean on him for a little while, then got up and popped him right on his HP, like any father would carry his son, like he recalled his own father doing with him, felt so natural. Bathroom break, he answered with a gentle smile at the questioning look he got from the boy. Stepped out of the room and opened the door to the bathroom and put him down so he could go in. I'll be right here. He reassured him. Harry, he noted, was sleeping on the couch all stretched out. That man could sleep anywhere it seemed. Shook his head, grabbed his phone and made a call to West. The man was already aware that they were on their way back. Either keeping track of his personal jet or his own pilot had called him. Bradley didn't ask which, of no real concern at that point. Thought you said it was going to be difficult. He could hear the smile in the man's voice. It is. Piper needs a pack hospital, West. She was attacked by a vampire and is still unconscious. Sweet goddess, Brad, I'll have my man at the airport for you. Or do you want to go straight to your pack? Will your plane make it from Hawaii to Helena in one trip? It will, about 7 hours, give or take the wind. Is she stable enough to get that far? Appears to be. Been out nearing 11 hours now. Breathing all right. Heart rate slow but steady. How bad is it? Coop's a good medic. Stapled her deepest wounds, but I'm more concerned about blood loss. We weren't there, just her and the vamp. It fed on her. I don't know how much she lost. Fuck, West murmured. Yeah, not good. We left in a big hurry, before that vamp's pack found us. Piper managed to kill it on her own. Piper has no idea at this point we're on the move. Not going to like it when she wakes up. I might head right for home. If you're all right with that, I'll send the plane back right away. Sure thing. How's your boy? Worried. Expected, I guess. Better go, West, thanks again. Bradley ended the call as Brandon came out of the bathroom, saw him look at Harry, and then to Bradley. Can sleep anywhere. Brad smiled at him. I'll get you something to drink. Go be with your mum. He held the door open for him to go back into the bedroom with Piper, closed the door to the room, and headed for the fridge. I'm not sleeping, conserving energy. It was Harry. Looks like it. Yep, was the simple reply, though you might need backup if Piper wakes up. Eddie. You forget Brad. I also have gamma blood. Harry cut him off. Didn't even open his eyes, just shook his head slightly. Brad looked right at him. He supposed he had never seen the man use that part of him, not once. How do you think I got her to dinner? He snorted, fully amused. I'm much more subtler in my gift than Eddie, Brad. But I can use it at will. Nice to know. Bradley nodded. Thank you, Harry, for getting her to dinner, by the way. It's all right. I like the girl. Going to give you a real run for your money, I think. And then you might need a pay raise. Brad nodded and smiled as he walked past the man. A bigger suite will do. That could be. Turned and looked at the man. A slight frown on his face was an odd request. Saw the man smirk, had yet to even open his eyes. Brad half laughed at the man, subtle indeed. Congratulations. Thanks, got the news right before Piper went running. Brad interrupted him, in case Brandon could hear from back there, though he was certain that part of the plane was soundproof. He didn't want to risk him hearing the truth and upsetting the boy. Find a suite when we get back. I'll let Betsy pick it, she'll love that. Brad smiled. Anywhere down the alpha end you like, then turned and headed back into the bedroom. Brandon was sitting on the bed just looking at her. Though Brad could see that the dressing on her neck was now visible, he looked at it, or the dressing anyway. Handed the juice to him and sank down on the bed and asked him if he was all right. She'll wake up right? He asked, looking troubled. I'm sure she will. Lost a lot of blood. To be honest with you, I don't know how much. But her heart rate is good and steady, so I'm certain she will. The boy was quiet, but there was nothing he could do other than reassure him as best he can. Cooper will come back soon and check her wounds. He's my beta and our medic. Do you know what that is? Got a sarcastic look from the boy. I'm not dumb, you know. Means like a paramedic. Seems he boy could drip sarcasm just like Piper could. Sorry, Brandon. He apologized. He didn't know the boy well and had not wanted to upset him in any way. We could spend this time getting to know each other. He offered. Still got a long flight, at least 7 hours once we take off, then about 40 minutes to our pack. He told him, hoping the boy would ask questions about he pack, be curious by the word. He said nothing, did drink the juice he was given. Bradley sighed internally. He had no idea what the boy thought about a pack, or what he knew of pack life. Didn't want to really force the boy to talk, but the silence was deafening in this room. Not that there was much he could do about it. Watched as Izzy walked right into the bedroom, glared right at him for a good solid 10 seconds. Then reached out for Brandon. To his complete surprise, the boy went willingly and instantly, without any hesitation at all. Then Izzy just walked clean out of the bedroom with him, didn't even say a single word to him, closed the door with a slight bang. It showed the closeness of their bond. But it ticked him off. She had no right to come in here and take his son from his presence. No, but Piper actually had that right as far as he was concerned. These two women seemed always to be angry with him. He'd done nothing to warrant her anger, as far as he knew. He had absolutely no idea what had ticked Izzy off, but something. He couldn't even go out there and pull her into line at this point. She had no idea of the hierarchy within a pack. Really wished she wasn't human right this minute. The minute she was a pack member, he was going to pull her into line. Edward, I would keep Izzy in check. He mind-linked to his gamma, more than annoyed by her attitude. Don't exactly know what is going on there. But instantly gets mad at myself or Cooper when we brought up your name. Even worse if it was in conjunction with Piper's. Why? He asked. All right. There was a full 10 seconds of quiet before he answered. A full hesitation. Likely didn't want to actually say, I don't know. Stalked off twice on me and yelled at Coop when we both tried to talk to her. Got a temper I think we've not yet seen. Bradley sighed and closed his eyes. Find out what it is, Eddie. I do not appreciate the attitude at all that I just got from her. Tried. We'll try again. Eddie acknowledged. It didn't actually take that long before Cooper opened a mind link to him, and Eddie for that matter, so Bradley could hear the argument that was now going on out there in the plane's cabin and right in front of Brandon at that. Izzy yelling at him to get the hell away from her. He scrubbed a hand over his face, bloody humans. Shook his head and got up. Stepped out of the bedroom. Cooper, go check on Piper and take Brandon with you now. He snapped, his eyes right on Izzy. Then he waited till the boy was out of sight and stalked over to the woman, clamped a hand around her arm and walked her off the plane. They were still at least 30 minutes from takeoff, marched that woman down the stairs and a good 50 feet from the plane. Knew Eddie would be watching in all likelihood, though doubt he would interfere. Bradley refused to let go even when she was struggling against him and his grip. This shit had to stop. Turned and looked right at her. Whatever this is, Izzy. Get it out now. I don't appreciate the attitude, and I don't want Piper waking up to hostility either. He snapped right at her. Like you care what Piper wants. Izzy snapped right back at him. He felt Benson get agitated almost instantly at her words. I do actually care about Piper a lot. I even told you exactly that, I believe. It's bullshit. She glared up at him. You're no different to what I thought. Why do you say that? He grated out, needed to try and stay calm, and had to remind himself and his wolf that she was still human. Piper is your mate, right? There was a very angry edge to her words, and he could see her fists were baled. A fire was lit in this woman, and he knew not why. Yes, Bradley answered. He knew that Piper had explained all of the mate bond to her, so why the hell was she so mad? He couldn't understand. You cheated on your mate, she told me. There was another woman, in fact stated. Always would be. She was glaring up at him, accusing him, and he knew it. He frowned right at her. She only knew part of their situation, didn't have all the facts. That was clear. Izzy, it's very complicated. No, it's not. Wolves mate for life, Piper told me so. He could actually see her anger notching up to a full fury. Oh, she was just like Piper. No wonder they were so close. You're just a cheating pig of a man. A snarl ripped right out of him, and Benson was all on the surface furious at her words. Watched her simply stand there and stare his wolf down, then tilted her head to the left ever so slightly, saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Wasn't exactly sure what it was. I'm not afraid of you. She snapped right at his wolf, surprised him a lot. How could you? From my limited understanding. Mates don't stray. So how could you do that to her, and then just have the hide to expect her to come back to you, when you decide you want her now? It's very complicated, Isabel. I suggest you cut the attitude. Piper is not like other wolves. No, she is not. She's better than all of you. Izzy yelled right at him. Pointed an angry finger at him. I've never once seen her get mad or even upset, till you came along. You ruined her, and you're going to do it again. Won't let you. She snarled right at him. Found Eddie right behind. He picked her clean up and took her away from him, right back to the plane. Eddie knew she was pushing his alpha's limits. His anger was all on the surface. If she was a wolf, he'd likely have lost it already, and they'd be in a wolf-out fight already. Stood there, fists balled at his sides as he watched Eddie carry her away. She was kicking and screaming at him, yelling at him to put her down and that she wasn't done with telling him off. That someone had to put him. If she got a wolf, she was going to be more than a handful. That snarl that came out of her was indicative that she would likely obtain a wolf, and quickly so. He glared right at her all the way until Eddie had her on plane and out of sight. Really wanted to punch something into next week. Benson was trying to rip out of him and put that woman firmly in her place. They knew what Piper had been through, but it was not all their fault. They had not known she was there. How the hell could they when they couldn't send her? They were certainly not out to ruin her again. As Izzy put it, he was standing there rooted completely to the spot, while his wolf was going completely crazy inside his mind, ripping and snarling at the edges of his mind trying to get out of him. Bradley was doing everything he could to contain his beast, staying perfectly still because he knew if he so much as moved a single muscle, Benson was going to be in full control. He had no idea what the hell his beast was going to do. He was in a complete fury inside his mind, like nothing Brad had ever seen before. If he got out, he was likely to destroy that plane in an effort to get to that human. While his whole unit defended her and tried to stop his beast from ripping her to shreds, she had no idea just how much trouble she was in. "Brad, I'm sorry," it was Eddie, very apologetic down the mind link. Only a massive snarl from Benson was all he got in return, and then the link was severed violently. He needed to be alone, to try and keep control of which he was losing the battle, and he could feel it. Benson's fury was ripping right through him, could feel Benson roaring to be released. He had never had to try and contain his beast in this kind of fit of rage before. Her telling him they were going to ruin their own mate, that she wouldn't let him. It was too much for Benson to handle. His wolf was pushing his own alpha aura at his human counterpart in an effort to get out now. The moment Bradley staggered a single step under the force, his own wolf was pushing at him. Benson was out of him. He'd lost the battle of wills. A massive roar ripped right out of his wolf right there on the tarmac for all to hear. He didn't even care where he was, and then he was gone, shot off the mark towards that plane. Bradley was shoved into a tight corner of his own mind. There was no way in hell his wolf was allowing him any control right this minute. His alpha wolf was in a full-blown alpha rage. Brad was yelling at Benson to calm down, to not lose it even though he already knew full well it was too late to talk his wolf down. There was nothing right this minute that was going to calm him down till he'd gotten what he wanted. Benson shot up and into that plane, to find all three of his alpha unit all standing right in front of Izzy, protecting her from his wolf. She had been shoved into a corner. Cooper was right there at the front. His hands were out in a stop gesture. "Calm down, Benson. Human, remember." Cooper was the most likely to be able to handle Benson. He was the strongest of the three. Benson snarled very aggressively at them. His eyes didn't even linger on Izzy. Shot past them all and into the bedroom, and only then did Bradley realize what was going to happen. Saw through Benson's eyes as Brandon's head whipped up, and then Aspen was all on the surface. Could hear from the yelling from behind him that his whole unit understood what was about to happen. Felt hands on him as Benson's fangs elongated. Could feel his beta's aura pouring over his wolf in order to try and stop his wolf. Then his wolf's fangs were in their unconscious mate, and he had claimed her for himself. His wolf did not care about the consequences, and he was not going to let anyone stop him from claiming his mate, or take her away from him. Not even a human was going to be allowed to try and talk her out of being their mate. Which Brad now could feel was what Benson had been perceiving Izzy's comment about not letting them, was, now that his beast's rage was ebbing. That Izzy was going to talk Piper out of being their mate, and they'd only just found her for themselves. His wolf was having none of that. He had bit deep, and as his venom flooded into her claiming her, he could actually feel his wolf calming down and relief flooding him, his beast.